They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge of name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The heavy wounds, undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall for justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring.
Hello, social change warriors, justice seekers. Welcome to another episode of Friday Night Lies. I'm Catherine Felton Page, your host and founder of Social Change Warriors. So happy to be back with you again on another Friday night. Can't believe how long this has been going on already. Seems like we just started and it's freaking the end of February. How's this happening, right? Well, guys, what the freaking frick is going on this week? What is in the water in Canton, Massachusetts? My goodness gracious. I don't even know where to start. Before we get to our witness testimony with Brian Albert, I just have to chat with you guys a little bit. I'm just literally stunned by what went on this week. There's I don't even know what to say. I'm so speechless. And as you have gotten to know me the last 6 months, I don't do speechless. So I am speechless. But first of all, I'm excited to tell you that in a few minutes, as soon as she gets settled, our newest Karen Reed Friday night, Justice for Karen Reed, Justice for John O'Keefe, Free Karen Reed groupie is Kara Veach, Jason's widow, who is one of our victims that we are standing for. If you've been following along, I'll let Kara introduce herself and tell you a little bit about herself. And we had a live show last night. It was our Thursday night late, which we'd never done before, 10 to midnight. And we were lucky to be joined by a fellow officer in my community. He was with the South Daytona Police Department, retired now, and he has his own podcast, which is amazing. And he is quite an interesting man, and he's really doing great work. So Kara met him and introduced me to him, and he lived with us last night, and it was fantastic. So if you not fantastic what we're living about, the death of Jason Veach, but fantastic that we are uncovering things every week that are leading to more and more issues and causing the case to be more suspect as to how the Volusia County sheriffs handled his death investigation. So if you get a chance, go in our library, Social Change Warriors library, and check that out. If you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it. And so would Kara, and support justice for Jason Veach whenever you can. So let me bring Kara up to the stage here. Actually, I'm going to wait till I know she's ready to, she'll give me the sign, thumbs up when you're ready to come to the stage. I'm going to say hi to everybody in the chat really quick in our conversational box where we all get to be one and talk to each other. Sherry D, welcome. Thanks for saying hi. She thought we were going at 8, but I'm tending to lean towards 9 o'clock for Friday nights because that gives people more of a chance to get off of work, go to dinner, do whatever they like to do on Friday nights. Gives me more time to be by myself on Fridays and chill out. So I think we're going to go with 9 from now on for Friday Night Lies. So thank you. Welcome, Southie Sally. I love it. I love that name. First of all, I love the name Sally. It's just not a name that's used a lot. And that's just such, I love that name. I had a really dear friend named Sally in grade school. And then I bartended when I was back in college in my 30s with this great girl named Sally. Hi, Sally, if you're out there anywhere, both my Sallys. So yes, great to have you. Hey, MCAT's back. Oh man, where's my Badger hat? I always got to punk MCAT because, you know, she's an Iowa Hawkeye. I'm a pinky tonight for Karen Reed, but I'm going back to the Badgers for a second. You see that, Hawkeye? Yes, I love my Badgers, but I'm good. I love it that we have healthy, fun competition in our Big 18, which the Big 10 is now the Big 18. So glad to have you, MCAT. You are awesome in our conversational area. Yes, Southie, every new week is crazy. Let me get your, there we go. Every new week is crazy. Tops the last. Who could actually script this insanity? You can't. You literally can't. And I have said this to Kara when I was introducing her to the case because I thought it might help her with everything she's got going on, trying to get justice for Jason, to have something to get into and join our group on Friday nights when she can. And she actually had to work tonight. So she just got off of work. And so we have now, she is officially addicted. We have her addicted. She's been watching the trial back. She'll tell us tonight how far she is. So it'll be great to have her reaction to Brian Albert because she hasn't seen his testimony yet. So this is going to be fantastic. So I'm really glad to have it. Yes, nice lid. Thank you. This actually, these were sold at one of my class reunions in Madison. I went to Madison East High School, the Madison East Golders, purple and gold. And we sold the purple one that you guys see me wear on Wednesdays. I use for domestic violence awareness because purple is the color for DV. It's the same one as the pink one, only it's purple. So purple were sold for East High School, and the pink ones they just sold for because they were pretty, and they had a couple other colors as well. And so the proceeds went to the lunch program for the East Side Madison schools to help fund lunches for kids. So it's just, the lady who does this is fantastic. They make these. So I think they order them plain and put all these pretty sparklies on them. So they're really awesome. So I hope they do that again. We have this all year class reunion that we used to have, which now has been suspended because it was just so much work. And the people that were doing it for 15 years just started to wear out. I hope that we'll get to do it again because it was really cool. It was an all year class reunion, and East was first opened in 1922. So every year, everybody that was still living I met people in their 70s and 80s. One lady was 85 that I met not that long ago that knew my dad, coincidentally, that was a couple years ahead of my dad in school. It was just a great idea, and I wish they did again. But that's where they sold these great hats, and the proceeds all went to feed kids in the East Side neighborhood schools. So thanks for noticing. Love it. Yes, I kind of call it my Karen Reed hat now, since it's pink. And so, yeah, and the sparkles are just fun. So anyway, guys, let's talk a little bit. Let me bring Kara up. Let me introduce her to all of you that don't know her, that haven't had a chance to be on the lives with us regarding her dear husband, Jason. And like I said, go in our live Social Change Warriors library, hit the live tab, go look for anything to do with Jason Veach. We've lived a number of times together, and you'll be able to catch up because we'll have more big updates next Wednesday when we finish reading the audio witness interviews that we read last night. We only read 2 because they were shockingly more than we thought they were going to be, in a bad way. So we had to unpack with our friend from Madison Audits, and we have to get to the rest next week, hopefully on Wednesday. So I'm going to just add Kara up here to the stage and me put us in 2 mode. There we go. Hey, Kara.
Hey, I'm actually still at work. but that's okay
Oh,
because no, it's okay because we're close. I'm just cleaning, so I'm in
okay.
it. I'm dedicated, invested. I'm down. I might mute myself a couple of times while I wash these dishes, but I'm here for it.
Absolutely. I'll just put you back down underneath and you'll be able to hear us. So you just tell me when you're ready and you want to come up on the platform.
You got it.
All right, dear. Thanks for
Right.
coming tonight. Love
I'm
you,
ready.
girl.
I'm so ready.
You're so ready. All right. I love this. Okay, guys. So listen, what in the world? I don't even know where to start with this week. Let's start with the whole motion hearing business, right? Let me put up my slide deck here for a minute, because I like anybody that's new. I'm Catherine Felton Page. I'm a former law enforcement officer from Madison, Wisconsin, UW Madison PD. Before that, I worked for the athletic department in fundraising for the football team, property management, lots of fundraising prior to becoming a police officer. So have a master's degree in social work, 2017 when I was in my 50s. And I've worked in domestic violence shelters, and I've worked with women who were victims of domestic violence and with families who family members were murdered because of domestic violence that was not caught in time, sadly. So I decided to come up with Social Change Warriors 5 years ago now, because I wanted to work in communities with domestic violence victims and educate people about domestic violence. And I was working with a team of 12 social workers. We were all volunteers, and they all brought different backgrounds and different interesting topics that we covered. We did pre-records. We didn't do any lives. We did pre-recorded. And then all of us were doing presentations in our own communities. We were spread out around the country. I'm still in contact with all of these amazing people, and they're all doing social work in their communities in various different aspects. And I had some health challenges, so I had to step away for a few months. And when I came back, I was really invested into the Jennifer Dulos murder case situation, which was a domestic violence. And her husband, Fodos Dulos, if you knew about this case or not, he unalived himself in the garage in the car because he was supposed to report back to court, and he knew darn well they had so much evidence against him. So he was a coward. He took his own life. He left his 5 children, which he would have been leaving them anyway, guys, because there's just no way he wouldn't have been convicted. Now, they did not ever find Jennifer. So they did not have, as you say, a body for an autopsy to get evidence, but there was so much. I mean, it was a lot of circumstantial, so I shouldn't say for sure. From what we've seen with this Karen Reed trial, nothing's for sure. It's possible he could have gotten off, but he chose the coward's way out, and he unalived himself. Then his girlfriend, who he was planning to marry, he'd already moved her into the home. Jennifer had moved out, bought her own home. She went to trial, and so I watched every day of that, and I started thinking to myself, maybe I should do some pre-recordeds about this and talk about domestic violence and talk about all the signs that were there and what could have been done. And then I thought, no, it's just so dark. It's going to make my life so much harder than it already is because I'll be so invested. I just didn't know what to do. I was so frustrated. I wanted to help. I wanted to help the family, but I just laid back and just didn't cover it, decided not to do a live stream on it, and just followed it and tweeted about it and tried to support through social media. Then Karen Reed trial came along, and I started following the live streamers that were getting involved, mostly Aiden, Turtle Boy, because he was the only one. The other live streamers that have now become so prominent to all of you, they were doing in their own lanes. They were all doing their own thing. And then slowly but surely, because most of them are in Massachusetts, then they came on board, kind of not under Aiden, but sort of alongside him and under him, and then started covering the case. So that really intrigued me. And I thought, well, shoot, maybe I should live stream about domestic violence victims and cases that are unsolved. And I can still talk about Karen Reed if I want to and stand for her and John O'Keefe justice. So that's how this all came about, my transition from pre-recorded for the last 5 years to live streaming. And it has been a ride. You guys all know this. It's been a wild ride. Good, some bad, some just crazy stuff that's happened that I got involved with sort of accidentally. Some of it because I'm outspoken. Some of it wasn't positive at all. And I thought about just leaving this platform and just continuing to do work with victims and their families on the ground, but not live stream about it. Maybe go back to pre-recordeds and just get out of the whole world of the negativity that was happening on Twitter and with YouTube and some of the creators. So I had to think about that for a while, and I chose not to leave. So I'm still here. I'm glad I'm still here. I've loved every person I've met for the most part. Not every person I've met, as you guys know, but most of you, absolutely 90% of you for sure. You're all great. All of you that subscribe to our channel, I appreciate you so much. And we've come so far. I mean, we started with 50 of my closest friends and family, and we're at 780 now. I mean, it's a slow build, and I'm not really trying for, as they say, numbers, because this isn't about money or monetization for me. This is just about helping advocate for the families and even possibly helping them solve their cases when and if I can, and complete support for the victims and their families. So the numbers for me are just about advocacy, and the more people that see our channel and see our advocacy for the victims and their families we're standing for, the better. So that's really what we're all about. And I appreciate all of you that have been with me from the beginning, those that have joined on in the middle, and now as we go into our 7th month. Thank you. I really do. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And so so there was the new motion that I read about today. I am clueless. If any of you understand this, we may have to all go find one of the lawyers and watch for a few minutes at some point tonight. We'd take a break from Brian, because I really don't understand some of this stuff. It's just, to me, it's all trickery right now. It's like smoke and mirrors. Like, I'm doing a motion. Okay, let's do a motion. You do a motion, then I'm doing a motion. I'm just like, what in the hell is going on? But this today has blown my mind. And I don't want to get too deep into it, because to be totally honest with you, Paul O'Keefe's personal life is none of my business. And I really don't want to know too much about it. But it's blowing up the internet of Free Karen Read, Justice for John O'Keefe, which is sort of a shame, because the focus is all supposed to be on getting justice for John O'Keefe and finding out who really killed him and being able to arrest them and prosecute them and put them in jail. To me, this is a little bit like National Enquirer stuff. I don't really love it, to be honest with you, but because everybody's talking about it, it's insane. And I think his news feed or something like stopped working today. Yeah, because, whenever there's something that's kind of scathing and not very savory, unfortunately, people all run to it and want to know about it. And I would be completely remiss if we'd just gone right into Brian Albert and not spoke of it. But I'm certainly not going to read all those text messages. You can go to Turtle Boy Daily News. It's all there. I'll even let me show you what is going on there. What are you guys thinking of all of this? I guess I just want to know what y'all think. So yeah, it's just something. Julie says, this is because Turtle Boy doesn't know anything else to do except ratchet madness. Exactly. This is ratchet madness at its highest level. And I kind of want to know what you guys think. Becky, hi, Becky, welcome. Paul is disgusting. Yeah, his behavior is disgusting. I mean, of all the times. Now, let's just say that they do not love each other anymore, which again is none of my business. But let's just theorize it, since we are all in it for Karen Read and we're in it for justice for John O'Keefe, and this is his brother, and it's making this huge splash on the internet, on social media. So I feel like we have to chat about it for a minute, or it would be silly. Can't ignore it. Some things we just can't ignore, even though we want to. Maybe their marriage wasn't really great before all this started, and if you imagine the stress and the pressure, regardless if we don't agree that they agree with all of the people that unalive John and covered for them, everyone that covered for those who did unalive him, it was probably only one or two of them. We can be mad about that and upset that they're not really using their intellectual brains to decipher science, and that there's no way that John was hit by a car. His injuries don't align with that whatsoever. And none of it makes sense whatsoever. And as we've been going through the witnesses little by little, we started with Katie, then we went to Chris and Julie Albert, then we had Nicole, now we're on Brian. None of them are telling the truth. We've discerned that every week, that there's been lies, there's been evasive behavior, there's been some truths, but not many. And even when they tell the truth, they're mad about it. They're angry with the defense attorneys for even daring to question anything they say, right? So it's a mess. And so I would assume it would hurt and affect anyone's marriage. And so maybe that's what happened. And maybe they're staying married for their kids' sake and for monetary reasons and to get through this trial. And they've agreed that they could do whatever they want in their private time. But let's be really careful, right, Paul? I mean, you are a center of a case that has made worldwide news. So if you and your wife agreed that you're good with this and you're going to do your own things and you're just going to co-parent your kids, live in the same house, that's your business. But please, but be careful. Don't just take up with some stranger on the internet who you don't even know who this person is. I mean, this could have been Haley Walbrecht, for Christ's sake, right? It could, sorry to say that, but yes, right? I mean, it could have been anybody catfishing him, because that's happening so often. It could have been, I mean, somebody could have paid somebody to do this. And I'm not saying it was Aiden, because he says he didn't do that, and he proves that he had never heard from her, seen her, but who knows, right? No one really knows who does what in this world. We'll never know, because that probably isn't going to come out. But the fact that now all their private text messages, there's even a voicemail out there on Aiden's, stream on his Turtle Boy News Nation. It's just crazy. And it's like, be more careful, Paul, and it's embarrassing for your family. Couldn't you just keep it in your pants for a little while longer? I mean, they didn't even meet. So it's not like there was even anything going on like that, other than if it was virtual, obviously. But jeepers criminies, of all the things that would have to happen, I'm kind of stunned. So this is, here, I can just pull this up. Let me share my screen a second, and I'll just show you how on fire the whole thing was today. And then we're going to jump right into Brian Albert, because we need to talk about him. And that's way more important than what is going on with Paul. But this is what it looked like today. Let me see if I'll go back in the room with you guys, make sure okay, good. Let me put myself smaller. There we go. And, his page, the Turtle Boy News, was pretty much on fire. I mean, that, like, I think it shut down for a while today, and I think his website shut down too, or whatever that page is where you can go read all his articles. But he's literally showing whoever this person is, this woman, if it's truly a woman, or whoever she or he is, they showed a lot of their text messages, and they played one of their voice messages. But everybody else, like Microdots and a lot of the big accounts, they were just Joe Flipperhead. They're just going on business as usual, which I'm sure they made a comment about it. But look at this here, 117,000 for, I mean, good for you, Joe Flipperhead. Your content is really good on him going back over Hank's testimony. So yeah, it's really something. Everything that happened this week is just beyond the pale in so many ways. But yeah, his page was just kind of on fire. 52K, 187K, 199. I mean, everything that happened this week just set the whole Turtle Boy News aflame. So, and then there was that motion today that I didn't get a chance to really read or understand. So we'll have to look into that as well. But what a week, guys. So let me come over. I just want to check on all of you here. Let me see what you have to say. Let's see. I want to go back to, there we go. So yeah, the content creators didn't know, they could have not slept all week, basically. I mean, the big ones that have been covering John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, the ones that live in Massachusetts, they literally could have live streamed every day for hours and hours and hours. MCAT, this is all about Paul and his lack of integrity. Yeah, to a degree, because again, if you're lonely, I'm sorry, but lots of us are lonely. I don't have a boyfriend right now. I'm not married. I've been divorced for years and years. I get lonely. Yeah, but I'm not going to do something stupid. I'm not going to make my family embarrassed. I mean, come on, right? Let's be real. MCAT says the McAlberts have no integrity and he is their friend. It is sick that MSP is pinning this murder on Karen and Paul is siding with these scummy. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, I have never understood why John's family wouldn't have kept a huge open mind in the beginning. Why would they have gone right to that judgment immediately? Like, it's never made sense to me. Like, it just doesn't sit right with me, because they didn't even take a week or take 2 days. They were literally blaming her right away, like in the house, right? When they were back at One Meadows, Karen, mentioned that's why she wanted to get out of there so fast. You feel that kind of tension, right? We've all been in these situations where we've been somewhere where we've had to run into someone who's a mutual friend of someone, and maybe there's kind of bad blood between you now, or just an issue between you, and it's a horrible, uncomfortable feeling. Or if you run into somebody that you used to date or you used to be friends with and you're not anymore, and you're at a sporty. I mean, I've run into old boyfriends at Badger games, and most people that I've dated in my life after my divorce, I'm amicable with, where I can say hi at a game or when I run into them, but some, no, not so much. So I'm sure the tension in that house was just horrible. And I'm sure Karen felt it. Plus she was in trauma and just wanted to go back to her parents' house into a safe zone, because that no longer felt safe for her. I'm assuming to be at One Meadows with Mom Reed, with Mom O'Keefe, having an attitude already that soon out of the gate. So Julie says, we can be talking about science and facts instead of victims' brother's personal life. That doesn't help the case at all. Right, exactly. None of this is helping Karen whatsoever. It's just all noise. And even some of these crazy, motions that they're making to try to one up each other in some ways, I understand why they're doing it, and it's illegal, maneuvering. But it's just really, this case will go down in history. I'm sure after I'm all long gone, because I'm older than most of you, there people will still be talking about this. In fact, I saw on somebody's channel, it might have been Brother Counsel or one of the lawyers, mentioned that there is already a law professor who has included some of the craziness of this case in his class as do not behave this way. And it had to do with Morrissey. Remember in year and a half ago, or was that just a year ago, right before the trial, when he put out that he had that press conference, and he basically said, I believe, I think Karen Reed is guilty, and you should all believe that too. And completely unethical for him to do that. Basically that was before jury selection. And yeah, I think that's one of their, what is it? What are they calling it, guys? I forgot the name of it now, because it's Friday Night Lies and I'm tired. But they already have a motion, right, against Morrissey for his incompetent behavior and just downright dysfunctional behavior that he put forward. So let's see here. What does Julie says? Yeah, OB was going over some of that stuff those people are up to beyond disgusting. Oh yeah, tell me. What I haven't been following very many other live streamers the last 2 weeks, because I've had so much casework with Michelle's case on the ground and Kara's case on the ground. I have been just reading my own books at night and trying to sleep. And a lot of those live shows interfere with my sleep, because they totally make my brain go crazy and then I can't go to sleep. So I am a little bit out of the loop with some of the other live streamers that you all follow that I used to follow. There's plenty of content on science and facts. Yeah, absolutely. So much. And it's interesting. Science is interesting. And when you get to the actual facts of this case, that's all interesting, right? 11 people came and went from that house, and not one of them could testify. Because if they had said, oh yeah, I saw the body, there's perjury right there, right? Except for Julie Nagel with her little sneaking in that, I think there was a black blob. That is so ridiculous. And there's no way she saw anything like that whatsoever. So in my mind, she did perjure herself, but how do you prove that, right? And nobody gets in trouble for perjury. So why even have it? Why is it even a thing, right? Because they don't punish anyone for that nowadays. Let's see here. Yeah, exactly. And it shows Paul. Yeah, right. It shows how Paul believes that he wants to believe. Yeah, right. Exactly. So there's just so many things about this case that are wrong that we've kind of chatted about in between our witness testimony. But for me, the science is number one, that everybody that's a scientist that has major degrees, PhDs in science, is telling you, and that includes the medical examiner, that those are not injuries consistent with motor vehicle pedestrian, and that there's just no way that his arm could have shattered a taillight. Could his head have shattered a taillight? I don't know. They've never said that, because they couldn't, because that wouldn't fit their narrative, right? That wouldn't put him where he landed, and having his elbow shatter a taillight like that. And you've seen all of the taillight stories that have been, with Sean on the Gulf and all of the other, there's so many people on Twitter X that aren't even YouTube live streamers that are just constantly bringing you content, like Joe Flipperhead and Microdots and Olivia and Brandy. And there's just so many out there that are bringing great content with the facts, only the facts, ma'am, science. And how people ignore that is just, it's beyond me. I've had debates with a lot of people on Twitter X that are anti-Karen Read. Some of them have been respectful, so I've continued to debate. Some then turned not respectful, so then I dropped off and didn't waste my time. But they just stick to the whole, I did it, and I hit him, and they stick to the paramedics saying that, even though that's very suspect at best, right? And they have nothing else. There's nothing else they can stand on. Oh, his Apple, the timing when his phone stopped moving. Well, that coincides with him getting beat up inside the house, right? So everything that they say, there's an answer for, there's science or there's facts, right? So it just doesn't make sense to me that there's even one person that thinks that Karen Read should be found guilty of this. That's what stuns me the most. Let's see. Julie says, oh yeah, MCAT says, O'Keefe family wanted to blame her and didn't even respect the fact that John loved and trusted her with the children. Yeah. And now they just hate her, and there's no going back now. I mean, if they were going to, I was kind of hoping that as the trial went on, that maybe they would change their minds, because if you're listening to the evidence, how do you not become, my jury's out, right? How do you not become circumstantial evidence? But they just tone deaf. They just plugged their ears and they just stuck to the message. And Paul continued to glare at Karen the entire trial. And now, because of this huge weird revelation with this woman sending all of these text messages and voice messages to Aiden, we know that they were doing secret signals. He was doing the secret signals with his online girlfriend. When he would scratch his chin with his pointy finger, that was him letting her know he's thinking of her. So it's like, whoa, this is just how this trial can get any more messed up and ridiculous, and Knots Landing, Dallas, like what are those other shows from back in the 80s when I was in high school and college, Twin Peaks? I mean, this is just unbelievable. The script will be amazing when written. Who would ever imagine this? Yeah. And you don't even have to do anything to it. You literally don't have to add anything. Sometimes, when they make a lot of biopics, like they've made about Freddie Mercury and Queen and John Travolta, not John Travolta, help me out. The Beatles. That one was fantastic, by the way, the one they did on the Beatles. But that was more kind of fantasy, right? Where John Lennon, was still alive and he didn't die. And, that was more fantasy, but it was so well done. But in some of the actual biopics where they've had to add a few things because they didn't feel it would be interesting enough, right? Which I don't understand. Why are you making a biopic then? Just make a fiction movie about a fiction rock and roll person. I don't understand that at all, because why would they have had to add it or changed anything to do with Freddie Mercury, right? And Queen. Just keep it all factual, 100%. I just don't get that. So anyway, Dynasty. I mean, I remember rushing home from Friday night football when I was a freshman because I wasn't old enough to go out to parties or to go out with friends. I didn't have my driver's license, and my grandma was a Dynasty addict, and she was a what's the other big one? Not Dynasty. What's the other one? Friday nights wasn't Dynasty. Wednesday was Dynasty. What was Friday nights, guys? South Fork, Ewing. That was the one my grandma was addicted to. And so I would sometimes want to go watch it with her. And I'd have my parents pick me up from Friday night football and rush me home so I could watch it with her. But yeah, that Dallas. Yeah, thank you. I said it earlier, but then it left me. Yeah, that show was iconic. But guys, this is what this is. This is true real life. And this is happening. This is happening to people in Canton, Massachusetts and Stoughton, Massachusetts. And this isn't fake made up stuff like Dallas and, Dynasty and all of those. This is just for the day and age where TV still wasn't, we still only, I think in the 80s, we might have only still had like 20 to 30 channels. I mean, cable had just come into existence. Prior in the 70s, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, there were like 5 channels, people. I mean, I know it's hard for my kids age in their 30s to even understand this, but we didn't watch a lot of TV. My kids played sports. They were outside all the time. Our TV was only on mostly for sports and for news and the weather and, stuff like that. We just not watch a lot of TV. And in my day and age, of course, we watched very little TV because we only had 5 or 6 channels, and it was just mostly shows, family type shows that you would watch with your family. Movies were on, old movies would be on, a lot of the channels, PBS. So yeah, everything's just so different now. And now, yes, now we've got true crime up close and personal. And then where people are riding along with law enforcement officers. And yeah, everything is just so different. So anyway, just wanted to do the whole opening with you guys tonight with everything that went on this week. There's so much. I mean, it would make you dizzy to even go on social media. There's so many people talking and chiming and putting out their opining and everything they're doing. And then, of course, all of the different YouTube channels that are in Massachusetts that are huge on this case. It's mind-boggling, and it's just almost overwhelming, right? So there's so much content out there about it. But like you're all saying, you seem to all be in agreement with me. I really don't care. I just want to see the people that killed John get arrested, and everybody that covered it up get arrested, and Karen get to go back and have a normal life again. What Mrs. O'Keefe does and Paul does, that's all their own business. Aaron, it's all their own business. I feel the most sad for her, even if they did agree that they're in an open marriage, which I still think is a possibility. She doesn't need all this attention. Her kids don't need all this crazy social media attention. So I don't know. The person who turned all this stuff in, I think you're kind of slimy. So if you did it on purpose, kind of shame on you, right? And if you didn't do it on purpose, if you started out because you really had a thing for him, like a lot of people get crushes on people that are on TV in court cases, and they get crushes on lawyers, judges, the person accused, everybody and their mother. This happens a lot. And so if you got a crush on him and then you decided he contacted you, you must have contacted him first, would be my guess. He wouldn't have known who you were. And then you changed your mind somewhere along the line. So then you decided to stick it to him. I don't know, guys. It just doesn't smell right to me. I don't like it. And so I won't be talking about it anymore, but I feel like it would have been like people would have thought my head was in the sand if I didn't open with it and talk about it. So, all right, let us get to Brian Albert, because we still know that he was involved in this, whether he struck the blow to the back of the head or John took a fall while they were fighting and he struck his head. I still think it was an accident. I don't think any of them, this is my opinion, I don't think it was premeditated to take him out to kill him. I think they were pissed at him for various reasons. There's a couple. It could have been the drugs in the city that he was sick and tired of and that he felt that nobody was addressing or doing anything about it. And he was pissed at Kevin, pissed at Chris, because Chris is on the city, council. It could have been that. It could have been something to do with Sandra Birchmore, right? I mean, he might have found something out about officers in Canton and what they did to help cover it up. That I've been leaning that way for a while, but whenever there's this kind of a heated hatred of someone and where to the point where they want to fight you and they want to teach you a lesson, it's something to do with something big. So I don't feel that Brian Higgins and his flirtation with Karen would lead to this big fight again, unless it was completely accidental. But I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever know. They did a terrible investigation. I think it was on purpose that they did a terrible investigation. There's no way. How are we going to get evidence? There's no cameras. All the doorbell cameras were mysteriously not working, including the officer across the street. Other footage is missing from the library, from the Sally Port. I mean, it's just a nightmare. It's a mess. How would they ever? I mean, they can't even get charges now against Suzanne Morphew's husband when they had him arrested the first time before they had her body. Now they had her body, had an autopsy, proved it was a tranquilizer gun. He had a tranquilizer gun. There was a tranquilizer shell in the dryer, and he still hasn't been arrested. She's still an unsolved homicide, domestic violence. So how do we get any of the McAlberts arrested or, and brought to trial when all the evidence is gone, right? It's frustrating. I every week I think I don't know how they're going to be able to bring charges and arrest anybody. But first and foremost, first step is getting Karen Reed back to her life and getting her out of this nightmare frame job that we all know has occurred and that Brian Albert absolutely participated in. So let's bring him up. Kara, are you home? I'm going to add her to the stage, and then once she gets situated, she'll come join us. So let me go to, let me stop sharing my screen of that information and let's dive into Brian Albert. All right, I have my guilty pleasure Friday nights now, guys. This is my USC, my master's degree school mug tonight, not the Badger mug. And I'm going to get potato chips in a minute because it is Friday night and I get to have a snack with my diet soda, which I don't do during the week. I try to eat as healthy as possible now at my very tender age of 62. Thanks again for celebrating my birthday with me last Friday Night Lies. That was a lot of fun doing, having the decorations and Valentine's Day and just hanging out with y'all. So there's Kara. Welcome, Kara. Are you still at work? You look like it. Okay, good. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to start.
I have nobody here anymore. It's just me cleaning, but you guys start.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna start.
I'll pipe in if I need to make a thing before I get home. But I'm gonna have Jay drive so that I can focus and talk.
Okay, perfect. This is great. And then we'll take a little break halfway through, and I'm going to let those that don't know about you and your husband, I'll let you tell a little bit about what happened, and maybe we can get them on board for Wednesday nights when we do our catch up with your case.
For sure. But we're going to be positive as much as we can tonight and focus on this.
Yeah, we're only focusing on this tonight, and you can just say hi to everybody when you come on the platform. All right, good luck. Take your time. All right, guys, let me share my screen and let's get rolling. I loved that when you said that earlier, Southie Sally. Let's roll. Okay, so let's go back up here to Brian Albert's full testimony. Now, what we did last week, for those of you that weren't here, and if you didn't get a chance to watch with us, we went right into the cross because we were all sick of Lally from Nicole Albert. So let me all know if at any point you want to go back over to Lally for a little bit and see what his demeanor was like, how he was behaving with Lally, because that's all very important, because all of these witnesses are different when they're with Lally compared to when they're with Jackson, Yannetti, or Miss Little, right? They're Attorney Little. They're totally, it's like flipping a pancake over, right? It's absolutely unbelievable. So, okay, so let's get rolling. Let me make the screen big here for you guys. There we go. Oh, wait, I don't want to do that. Let me go back. Well, how do I get out of that? All right, that's the first time I've ever made it big like that before. I got rid of my chat box. Now I got to figure out how to get out of here. Exit. There we go. So I'm still learning all the ins and outs of StreamYard. Every time we live together, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, I learn something new. So I'd never gotten rid of the chat box like that before, but I don't like that because I want to be able to put up your chat. So let me make this go away like that. Okay, I'm going to go back into the actual tech room here and see if I can make this bigger. There we go. That helps, doesn't it? Yeah, that's good. And then I think I can even now make myself go away. There, perfect. All right. So I'm going to back it up a little bit because, to be honest with you, we were on together for like 4 hours. It was a crazy Friday Night Lies last week, and I don't remember. So I'm going to roll us back a little bit, and then you guys just let me know in our conversation area if you want me to go to Lally for a little bit so we can kind of see how different he was with Lally. And then we'll go back into, we can just go pop back and forth, whatever we want to do tonight, because we're only doing Brian. I gave up trying with the idea of trying to do 2 in one night. That's just not going to work, because we like to dissect. We like to look at every little thing that he is or isn't doing, because that's the point of doing this on Friday night. So I also haven't looked yet who's next. So if anybody remembers who's next, I can look it up too while he's talking. But yeah, let's go. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to rewind it just a little bit, and so we can kind of pick up sort of where we left off last week.
All that well.
You were far better friends with Brian Higgins than you were with John O'Keefe. That's fair to say.
Yes.
On
guys
Friday,
see that okay?
You were asked whether or not you knew my client, Karen Reed, correct? This meeting a couple days ago during your direct examination.
I believe so, yes.
You were also asked the same series of questions at another grand jury not involving the Commonwealth. You remember that in June of 2023?
Yes.
I want to be clear about this other hearing. That was a non-Commonwealth hearing in front of a grand jury, correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Lally and his colleagues were not there. Is that right?
Yes.
I was not there. Mr. Yannetti was not there.
Yes.
Or Miss Little.
Right.
Okay. At that June 2023, and I'm going to talk about a couple of dates, so I don't want to be confusing. At that June 2023 non-Commonwealth hearing, you were asked some questions about whether or not you knew Karen Reed. before January 28th, 2022?
I believe.
That's not in question.
I believe so. Yes.
And you testified, before you testified, you were sworn an oath.
Yes.
Same oath that you swore in this trial, correct?
Yes.
Swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And you knew that you were testifying under penalty of perjury in that hearing as well, correct?
Yes.
And you testified at that non-Commonwealth grand jury that you, quote, believe Karen was with John the night he came into Hillside, a female that looked similar to Karen from the waterfall came in with him on that night. And I assume that was her, but I can't say for sure, end quote. That was your testimony before that grand jury.
Yes.
But you were also asked a similar question in April of 2022 by Mr. Lally at his grand jury. You remember that?
No.
Let's start at the beginning. Before you testified in the April 2022 grand jury, more than a year earlier, and just 3 months after this incident, you were sworn an oath, correct?
Yes.
Same oath that you took in June of 2023, right?
Yes.
And the same oath you took on Friday.
Yes.
Isn't it true that you were asked the question whether or not you knew Karen Reed on January 28th, 2022, and you testified, quote, I've never met or seen her before, end quote.
No, I don't recall that.
Didn't you indicate that you just that you reviewed your grand jury testimony in anticipation for this trial?
Yes.
You'd read the whole thing,
Yes.
and you don't recall making that statement?
No.
May I approach you on it?
Yes, and I'll see Counsel Taibar when you leave that with the witness.
Just please take a look at that.
Sure.
So you guys get what he's going for here, right? Is that he was in the grand jury, the one they're not supposed to talk about, and then Lally's grand jury in April of 2022, and he's trying to show that he lied, right? That he had two different statements. I might, but I can't say for sure. I might have met her at the Hillside, but then back in the 2022 April, he says he's never met her before. So he's definitely drawing this out for quite a while, because he wants to try to show that he lies and that he lies quite easily, right? So yeah, Julie says he presents himself as Fred Rogers with Lally. It's painfully annoying. This is not the boy next door. Exactly. Thank God. Yeah. And I remember when I watched this the first, when the trial was on, I'm sure all of you felt the same way. When I saw him walk in, I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like he's dressed up, he's dressed like this, like you said, like a choir boy, like he's like the church, head of the church board or something. I was like stunned, but who wouldn't do that, right? Like if you know what you've done, and you have to go to court, you're going to do that. You're going to look your best we were talking about this Wednesday night when I had my survivors show with two survivors of domestic violence and how their partners would show up at court dressed in a suit, carrying a briefcase, hair done, shaved, not looking like they do when they're crazy and wild and attacking them, and how easy it is to be fooled. Like the court people in the family courts are fooled by these guys who put this mask on of being this great person. And that's exactly what Brian Albert is doing here. He's putting this mask, this costume on. This is my costume. And he had his, they had Colin dress up in a costume as well, right? To look like this boy next door. And they even gave, testimony of, he said goodnight to his parents and he tells us he loves us. And, that's all rehearsed. That was all, part of the script, right? Okay. Let's go back. I just like to stop every once in a while for fair use reasons when we show we're showing the content from the trial, but I still like to stop and hear what you guys have to say. See if anybody wants to be brave and come on the platform with me. We know Kara's going to do it tonight, but she's gotten quite used to it. So, all right, back we go. Let's see what else he has to say. I love how he wears his glasses. It's like they're too small for him, but those are readers. I don't need readers. I only need glasses for distance. So I have to take my glasses off when I'm reading. And those readers don't look like they fit him. He looks like he grabbed Nicole's.
I have to
Oops,
poop.
commercial.
But it feels stuck.
Stop! Are you trying to kill us?
Trying to go forward, but it's tricky when it's only like
Quote though.
Right. The whole quote is the following. Question. So the female you had never met before, is that fair to say? Answer. No, I've never met her or seen her before, period. Maybe once, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her. That was the entire quote, correct?
That's the entire quote. Yes, that's not what you read earlier, but yes.
Well, what I read earlier was, I've never met or seen her before. Those words came out of your mouth, correct?
That's not my whole sentence. No.
You said, I've never met or seen her before, and then you said, maybe once, but I've never had a conversation with her, I don't think.
Right. That's my sentence.
Okay, so which is it, Mr. Albert? What were you saying? Were you saying you met her and had a conversation with her? Or were you saying, I've never met or seen her before? Which one of those two things was true?
I was saying that I've met her maybe once.
Actually, what you said was, I've never met her or seen her before. Your words, not my words, sir. Isn't that right?
I
No,
love
because
it
in the
when
next
you get
sentence I
snarky
say
there.
I met her maybe once.
So you literally changed your testimony within your own testimony.
Yes.
Objection.
Oh
Now,
gosh.
can you answer that, Mr. Albert?
I believe I qualified my first sentence with his second.
Guys, I love Jackson. This is where he is absolutely at his best. So you literally changed your own testimony within your own testimony. I remember this now from the first time. I was just roaring. Like he gets him a little bit hot under the collar here. Definitely.
Sentence.
So what changed between the first sentence, where you indicated unequivocally, I've never met or seen her before, and the second sentence when you said, maybe once?
I'm not sure what I was thinking at the time that I said that.
Isn't it true, Mr. Albert, not only had you met Miss Reed, but you had spent several hours with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe 6 days before this incident. Isn't that true?
No.
In fact, on January 22nd, 2022, 6 days before January 28th, you socialized with Karen Reed at the Hillside Bar for several hours, didn't you?
I was at the Hillside Bar the week prior. Yes.
It was a Saturday night, correct?
Yes.
You were at the bar.
Yes.
There were several other folks at the bar, correct?
Several people. Yes.
That included Chris Albert, your brother,
Yes.
a guy named Tim Daly,
Yes.
Daily, is that right?
I'm not sure how to spell his last name.
Julie Albert was there.
Yes.
Jen McCabe was there.
Yes.
Matt McCabe was there.
Yes.
John O'Keefe was there.
Yes, he was.
And Karen Reed was there. Correct?
Yes, she was.
In fact, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'd like you to take a look at a photograph. Just look at that to yourself for a second. Tell me if you familiarize yourself with it, and then look up when you're ready.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Actually, I don't need to. Mr. Albert, you can stay there. Do you recognize the photograph that's before you?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
Well, I recognize the people within the photograph, and the background of the photograph looks like the hillside.
Does that appear to be a photograph that was taken on January 22nd, 2022?
Yes.
You were at the Hillside Bar?
Yes.
May I publish this, Your Honor?
Okay. Is it already in evidence, or
It
you?
is not, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
So you put it in evidence first, and then you publish
I
it.
have that marked as next in order,
Yes.
and then
Hi, Shauna. Welcome.
Thank you.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. You see
Deb
that
has
photograph?
such a
It's
flat
the same photograph
tone
that you're looking
when
at
she
in front of you?
talks to
Yes.
Jackson.
Describe who the people are going from left to right, sir.
Chris Albert, myself, John O'Keefe, and Tim Daly.
And this was on January 22nd, 2022, at about 11 p.m., correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, who took the photo?
This was classic.
I don't know.
Of course
Karen
you
Reed took
know.
the photo, didn't
You
she?
know.
I have no idea who took that photo.
Bullshit.
Karen Reed took the photo, you're literally staring right at her.
We all
correct?
call bullshit.
I don't know who took the photo.
Well, who else do you think it could have been?
Well, there were a lot of people there. You mentioned my sister, two sister-in-laws, a brother-in-law. I'm not sure.
We can turn the lights back on, please, and take the photo down.
Did you ever see this photo from Jim McCabe?
No,
Did you ever see it from Julie Albert?
no.
Chris Albert didn't take it. He's in it.
Right,
Tim didn't take it. He's in it.
right,
You obviously didn't take it.
right.
And who's the guy on the far right?
Tim,
That was Tim. Who's the guy next to Tim?
John. Right?
So who do you think?
Do you still need the photo up? I'm sorry, I thought you were done with it.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was John. Yeah.
Okay. Put the
Yes.
baseball cap on, correct?
Yes.
I don't need it. Your Honor.
Okay.
So given the fact that you were never shown that, you've never seen that photo before today, correct?
I saw a photo that was sent to me in Discovery or to my attorney that showed only, I believe, me and John in the picture.
Okay.
I think it's the same photo, only that's blown up to show everybody.
Got it. So given what you now know about that night, who was there, the fact that John is posing for a photo right next to you, who do you think took the photo, sir?
I have no idea who took the photo.
Could it have been Karen Reed?
Objection.
Sustained. Let's move along from
In
that,
fact,
please.
Hi, Gina. Welcome.
you were interacting with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe throughout that evening, correct?
I remember having conversations with John that evening. I don't necessarily remember speaking to Karen that evening.
Irrespective of whether or not you spoke to her, you obviously saw her there.
Yes.
You were there with her for a couple of hours.
Well, I wasn't there with her for a few hours. I was there with other people.
Okay. So without splitting hairs, she was there, correct?
Yes.
John was there.
Yes.
You were socializing with John.
Yes.
She was right next to him.
So doesn't that remind you a little bit, guys, of Katie? Katie, where again, every time when we had Katie, when we had Chris, when we had Nicole, when we had Julie, now Brian, they all, like Jackson just said, they're splitting hairs. They'd refuse to just answer the question honestly, right? Why is that? We all know why that is, because they've been coached. They've been told, be careful. Don't say that, or don't make it look like you were too friendly with Karen. Don't make it, try to get away with passing it off that you didn't even know her. It's really kind of stunning to watch it back and see, after you see witness after witness now, when you see it the first time, it's hard to really remember everything. So that's just my take on it, that, that's just proves that there was coaching going on. They were told to be careful what you say and how you say it, and distance yourself from Karen as much as you can. Katie, distance yourself from the Albert family, distance yourself from Caitlin. It's just remarkable, isn't it? So, Julie, Shauna, hey, do you all think the court stenographer will be able to use modern equipment? Felt bad for her. It was something out of Mad Men series. Absolutely. Isn't that? And then, when Auntie Deb, does his comedic parody, and he has, he honed right in on that, right? And sometimes he had the cat, she was holding up a cat, his cat, and other times it was a lobster, or it might have even been, anything. I could pick up my little fairy light here that I have in my room, and I could hold it up like it was my thing. Jimmy does that with everything. Auntie Deb does that with everything. So he actually put out something new the other day. He kind of did a review of all of the stuff that's gone on, not what happened today with this whole Aiden thing with Paul O'Keefe, but he's got something scheduled for the 27th that has to do with Jen McCabe. So I think I'm going to find out. I'm going to text him and see when he's going live for sure, because I'm going to make sure that whatever we're doing that night, that's Thursday, that we don't cross over, because that way you can all watch. Because anytime he does the characters, it blows my mind. And people have criticized it because, this is serious. John O'Keefe is dead. He's going to be dead. He's not coming back. And why are we joking about it? But that's not really it. It's the parody of the behavior of the witnesses and the judge and everything to do with this trial. And because true crime is so dark and scary, and those of us that follow it, that want to stand for justice, and you need something like that. It helps to get through, because we still have to live every day. We still have to have our own lives and carry on and be as happy as we can be in our own lives. We can't constantly be in the dark, because there have been true crime people that have actually had to step out and down because they get compassion fatigue so bad that they become depressed and have anxiety attacks. And there was a true crime novelist, and I wish I could think of her name. I'll try to look it up. If not, I'll mention it next week. Maybe some of you will remember. She took her own life because she was, oh no, I take that back. I think, was she fiction? Now I don't remember. I don't remember if she was fiction or if she was true crime, but she took her own life because her family said she was in it every day. She never took a day off, 7 days a week. She lived and breathed and ate this, and it affected her mental health so badly that she became super depressed and an introvert, never went out, was afraid of everything. I mean, that's just horrible. So I always say this on my live shows at some point, please take care of yourselves. True crime and following this kind of sadness and devastation that happens, these tragic events, whether it be murder or unaliving of themselves. In some cases, that turns out that is what happened, and you're following a case, or just a case doesn't go the way you want it to. The person that you are believing is innocent doesn't get their verdict, and it can really wreak havoc on you. So make sure you're still doing your own lives and your self-care, and take days off from true crime, please, because it's very overwhelming. It's very, very much so. Let's see here. What does Julie have to say? OMG, Nurse Kim called in as Judge Bev, and Deb did Hank Brennan. I laughed so hard I almost choked up. Was that yesterday? I haven't seen it yet. I just know she did it, but I haven't seen it yet. Yes, it's because the courts are so ridiculous. Exactly. Shauna says, but it's such a joke of a trial. We need comic relief. It's so ridiculous, but it doesn't mean we don't feel terrible for OJO. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's had this parody never come up, if we had never met Auntie Deb, we'd still be somewhat making fun of this, because this is just beyond the pale. I started, when I was tweeting about it back in June, I was calling it the theater of the absurd, because it's like a play. You couldn't write this. You couldn't write, Agatha Christie couldn't have done this any better. The Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and all these ones we grew up with, right? Macmillan and Wife and Columbo. Remember, we watched those shows. This is like that, only this is real. This really happened. And Stoughton and Sandra Birchmore really happened. And Philadelphia and Ellen Greenberg, it really happened. But this is like colossal cover-up and crime and corruption at so many levels of police and government. It's frightening. It should be frightening, because it is, because you have people in power that we're supposed to trust and believe in committing crimes right in front of our faces, like and giving us the middle finger every day they do it, because they think they're going to get away with it. And in most cases they do, and they have. For Ellen Greenberg, the person who unalived her, and the family that covered it up, and the government that covered it up, and the police, it's been since 2011. And Sandra Birchmore was 2 years that they were able to get away with it and cover it up. I mean, if John O'Keefe had not had the misfortune to get in this altercation fight with the Alberts and McCabe's and whatever happened that night, Ryan Higgins, if a Colin was involved, whoever did it, would we know about Sandra Birchmore? how do we know we would? We don't know, right? That's terrifying. But her case could still be considered a non-aliving of herself. And Matthew Farrell could still be free and clear and living his life and doing other nefarious, horrible acts. So it's incredible what has gone on in one state. It really, truly is. It's just beyond the pale, as we say. So, all right, let me see here. What does MCAT have to say? Yeah, Auntie Deb is awesome. He did a live yesterday during the day. Yeah, I didn't get to watch it, but okay, I will. Now that you're all saying how great it is, maybe we'll watch a tiny little bit of it. Fair use, and I know he'd be okay with it. Maybe we'll watch a tiny little bit of it at the end tonight, because he cheers me up with his comic parody relief. Shauna, I can understand that. I stopped watching anything with MS of children got too disturbing. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. I can't, it's hard for me. It was hard for me to follow any of the more recent cases with the missing children and the unaliving of anybody, under 18 is just so disturbing and extra egregious and difficult. Absolutely. Okay. I see Kara. I'm going to bring her up I'm trying to tell if she's home yet. I think she's in the car. So are you in the car? You're in the car. Okay, great. We'll bring you up in just a little bit. You're muted. So,
I'll be home in like 15 minutes.
Perfect. Good. Well, we're just going to go back into another round of Brian Albert and calling out his lies. So we'll see you soon, my dear.
Alrighty.
Okay, back at it. Thanks everybody for all of your comments, and let's return to the ever elusive, pretty much lied his ass off in two different grand juries, Mr. Albert.
Sometimes, perhaps not. Maybe all the times I was talking to him. No.
So you were socializing not exclusively with her,
right?
But certainly socializing with her 6 days before John O'Keefe ended up dead on your lawn, correct?
We were there at the same time, yes.
And yet, when you were asked 3 months later,
we were there
do you
at the
know
same time.
Karen Reed, or how do you know Karen Reed? The actual question was, so the female you've never met before. Is that fair to say? That was Mr. Lowry's question, and your immediate response was, no, I've never met her or seen her before.
Back up.
Correct?
Hang on.
That's what you said.
That's not my whole response, no.
That's what you said immediately upon that question, sir.
That's the beginning of my response, yes.
That was the first sentence out of your mouth.
Yes.
You also testified at the subsequent grand jury in June of 2023. When asked what was your impression of Miss Reed, you said, quote, I honestly didn't really have one. I didn't have any conversation with her. I just kind of saw her from across the table. I didn't really think of it either way. Correct?
I don't know what that question is referring to. Is that for the waterfall or is that for Hillside?
Hillside.
Okay, yes.
All right. So in June of 23, a little over a year later, your testimony significantly changed from no, I've never met or seen her before, to I really didn't have a conversation with her. I saw her across the table. I didn't really think of it either way. Correct?
No, I think those are very similar testimonies.
When you were asked in the other proceeding, and this is about the waterfall, question, did you talk to Karen Reed at the waterfall that night? You answered unequivocally, I did not. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's what you told the June grand jury, June of 23, correct?
Are you referring to the state grand jury? Or?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's why I'm using dates. I'm trying to be careful.
Right.
April.
I'm just not clear on what all the dates were.
I'll see if I can clarify.
Okay.
April 2022, state grand jury. June of 2023, a different grand jury.
Okay.
Okay. When you were asked at the June of 2023 grand jury, did you ever talk with Karen Reed at the waterfall that night? Your answer was, I did not. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. With the court's permission, could I play a small clip from Exhibit 53?
Okay.
Starting at timestamp 11:53 and 15 seconds. If we could just play this, and I would direct your attention, sir, to the upper right-hand corner.
I think it's time for a little grab ass.
Once you try a comfort hoodie, you can't go back to regular hoodies. They're slightly weighted, super oversized. It's that perfect fit that makes
Pause it. Do you recognize the individuals in this clip?
Yes.
Do you recognize that person?
Yes, I believe that's me.
Do you recognize that person?
I do. I believe that's the defendant.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
what does it appear you
The
are doing
defendant.
as it relates to Ms. Reed in this clip?
It appears that I'm talking at the table. I don't know if it's specifically to her, but
Go ahead and play it. Stop. Did you see the part of the clip starting at 11:53 and 15 seconds, going back about 30 seconds?
yes.
Who did it appear you were talking directly to, and who did it appear was answering directly to you?
I looked like I was speaking, but I can't say for sure that I was directly talking to the defendant.
Even though it looked like you were looking right at her and leaning toward her as she's answering you.
I was definitely looking that way. I don't remember the conversation.
The reality is, we can take that down. The reality is, Mr. Albert, you had many conversations with her throughout the night, like you would with anybody else you were socializing with, correct?
No.
It's not like you ignored her through that evening.
No, I think that just the positioning of me on the other side of the table, I didn't have really much contact.
There was only one person between you, and that was Mr. Higgins.
No, I don't think that was the setup for the whole night.
I didn't say the whole night.
Right.
I'm talking about right then.
Right. So,
That's an example.
right. What's your question? Rephrase your question, please.
Did you or did you not have conversations with Karen Reed that night?
I do not recall having conversations with Karen Reed that night at all. No.
And that's what you told the grand jury under oath, notwithstanding this video evidence to the contrary.
Yes, I don't think that video shows that.
I'm going to let that stand. Next question, please.
You were interviewed by Michael Proctor on January 29th, the day after this incident, correct?
Yes.
And that was 6 days after you spent several hours, Karen Reed, at this event, correct? 6 days later.
Yes.
You were asked by Michael Proctor whether or not you knew or what your relationship was with Karen Reed, correct?
I don't recall if he asked me that.
Did you say to Michael Proctor, quote, that you quote, did not know Karen Reed, end quote?
I may have, yes.
But when you made that statement, you did not know that Ms. Reed had a photograph of you at the Hillside Bar, correct? You didn't know that photo existed, did you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Sir, you were trying to distance yourself from Ms. Reed in your interview with Michael Proctor, weren't you?
Objection.
Were you?
No, I was not.
Mr. Albert, you were trying to distance yourself from knowing Ms. Reed in your grand jury testimony with, well, I'll use the date, in your April 2022 grand jury testimony, weren't you?
No.
You were further trying to distance yourself from Ms. Reed in your June 2023 grand jury testimony as well, correct?
No.
You thought that it was important to try to deny knowing John O'Keefe and Karen Reed during those interviews and or that testimony.
Objection.
Sustained.
Mr. Albert, you knew that if you admitted having a relationship with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, you'd have a lot to answer for when Karen Reed's boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask the question differently.
You knew that there would be questions about your relationship with Karen Reed if it were known that you knew her before her boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, correct? There would be questions.
Objection.
Can ask it a different way. That's sustained.
So you lied under oath when you said, I've never met or seen her before, correct?
No, because that wasn't my whole statement.
The sentence, I've never met or seen her before, pretty unequivocal, isn't it?
That was not the context of my whole sentence.
But those are the words that came out of your mouth, right?
Initially, and then I remembered that I had met her once.
Let me just ask it this way.
Sure.
Is that sentence true or false? That you had never met or seen her before? True or false?
That portion of that sentence is false.
Let's get this on the record. Did John O'Keefe come into your house at 34 Fairview at any time on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not. I wished he had.
And you're as sure about that as you are about the statement that you had never met or seen Karen Reed in your life,
Objection.
correct?
Sustained. Can ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
I want to get back to the waterfall.
So I thought it was pretty brilliant. I thought it was pretty brilliant the way he handled that, with trying to get him to kind of slip up maybe, or admit that he screwed up, or, it was interesting, right? The way he did that, and how Brian kept going back to, but that's only half of what I said. But the way that Jackson made it sound is that they were in two separate grand juries, that he's in one, he said, I can't say for sure if I've ever met her. And then in the other one is where Jackson pointed out, he said, I've never met her. So that wouldn't really work, because he changes his, his tune in mid sentence, but they were separate hearings. So he was doing exactly what Jackson said he was doing. They were trying to separate themselves from being friends or knowing John and Karen or having anything to really do with them before that night, which we know wasn't true. So the other thing I wanted to point out to you guys, and I wanted to get your opinion on, comparing Brian to even Chris, even Chris, Katie or Julie, even though, they were snarky at times with Cross, they still had moments where they were, like with the whole Gennady with Julie, remember, with her readers, and she smiled, she laughed. Katie even had moments where she seemed somewhat normal with the defense, even Chris Albert, right? But with Brian, have you noticed from the second we started watching this last week until today, he has not broke whatever character this is, which this character is no emotion, no facial expressions, no like smiling for a second or being anywhere, anyway, like even a bit conversational with Alan Jackson. It's almost robotic, right? Are you guys seeing that? And he looks to me like he hasn't slept in weeks. I mean, he's got those big dark circles, kind of bags under his eyes. And he looks almost like pale to me. So I just found it to be like very robotic. Like in his mind, he's saying, I'm just going to answer yes, no, shortest answers possible. No facial expressions, no nothing. Actually, you're trained too how to testify when you go to the police academy, and when you're doing your in-services, and you're trained how to testify so that you don't let the attorney for the other, for the person that you're talking about, the person you wrote a ticket to or that you arrested, because you don't want to show a lot of emotion. When you have to go to court as a police officer, it's got to be super professional, and it does just have to be just the facts, and you can't let emotion get the best of you. So he's trained, and he's testified in court, I'm sure, probably hundreds of times. I wouldn't even know, given the job that he did and the number of years that he did it. So some of it is he's practiced at this way more than obviously the others are. And then the other part is he basically said to himself, I am doing this as robotic as possible. And I just found that to be quite something. What does Julie says, I hate that. Oh, I hate that. I wish he had. Yeah. That was a very, I remember that too. How I felt when he said that. I wish he had. That was a really weird, just a weird thing to say. He is a hostile man. Yeah. You can just see that he has like darkness in him and like anger. And it must have stemmed from something that happened to him, in childhood, or he was just born this way, But yeah, I mean, given that we know for a fact that he's been in fights and he was disciplined for those, and he's just a violent person. I think he has a very short fuse, right? Overall. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to where we were. Thank you for chiming in. I greatly appreciate it.
I know I asked you this about the hillside. I may not have asked you about this specific question about the waterfall. Did Brian Higgins say anything to you about John O'Keefe and Karen Reed walking in together at the waterfall?
No.
Did he say anything or give you any indication that he was upset about Karen Reed showing up with John O'Keefe?
No, he did not.
It appeared from your observations that John and Karen were getting along at the waterfall.
I didn't really notice, but I didn't notice anything was wrong.
They appeared pleasant?
Yes.
Happy?
I don't know if they appeared happy. I didn't really notice.
They were interacting with others?
Yes.
You didn't notice any tension?
No.
No argument?
No.
No yelling or fighting?
Nope.
They looked like a normal, happy couple?
Yes.
Did either of them appear to you to be completely drunk?
I didn't have a ton of interaction with John or Karen that night, so I can't really say, but it didn't appear them that they were drunk, no.
You had an opportunity to review the waterfall video. You did it with Mr. Lally, correct?
The only small portion of it.
Right, but even in that small portion, and based on your memory, you don't remember anybody being stumbling drunk and falling down over stools and things of that nature?
No.
Okay. They appeared to be acting appropriately?
Yes.
And interacting with others appropriately?
Yes.
People were buying drinks for others, is that right?
I'm sure. I don't recall exactly, but I'm sure that was going on, yes.
It's not that unusual to say, hey, I'll get this round, correct?
Yes.
You left the waterfall at 11:58, is that right?
Yes, approximately.
Who was invited to come over to your house upon leaving the waterfall?
Whoever wanted to, really.
You'd been drinking since about what time in the evening or in the afternoon?
9-ish.
That's when you went to the hillside?
Yes.
That's when you had your first drink?
Yes.
And you continued drinking throughout the evening consistently?
Yes.
Did you believe you were okay to drive?
Yes.
What kind of car did you have at the time?
Ford Edge.
Black?
Yes.
Did you drive that car home from the waterfall?
Yes.
Who rode with you?
My wife and my daughter.
What other cars were in the driveway when you got there?
I don't recall. Brian Higgins' Jeep was in the driveway backing up as we pulled in.
So kind of in your way.
Yes.
In other words, you weren't going to park him in.
I didn't want to block him in.
Right. So you waited until he moved his Jeep out of the way.
Yes.
And then you pulled in.
Yes.
Where in the driveway did you pull in?
I believe I pulled to the left side of the driveway.
You would have been closest to the garage, or was there a car between you and the garage?
I would have been closest to the left side walkway. I don't think there was a car in front of me, but I'm not 100%.
Mr. Albert, did you move that black Ford Edge at any point that night after you got home?
No.
Brian Higgins was the first person to actually physically get to the house. He got there before you, correct?
Yes.
Describe his Jeep.
He had a Jeep Wrangler. I believe it's white. I think it's white.
Any appendage on it?
A plow.
A snow plow on the front?
Yes.
That can hydraulically go up and down.
I didn't see it that closely. I'm assuming it can, but I don't know that for sure.
After Mr. Higgins moved out of your way, out of the driveway, where did he put that Jeep?
I don't know. I don't know where he parked.
So you wouldn't have gotten to the house if you left Waterfall at 11:58. You have to get out to your car, get in your car, start it up, drive home. wait for Brian Higgins to move his Jeep, park your car, then get into the house. That's a fair assessment of the mechanism of you getting home that night, correct?
Yes.
You wouldn't have gotten into the house until, what, 12:15? Maybe 15 minutes for all that?
I would put it more, maybe 10 past 12.
Okay. 12:10 or so?
That would just be a guess.
So it could have been 12:15.
Yeah, and it could have been 12:07.
Who was inside the house when you walked in?
My nephew Colin, my son Brian, and then he had two friends, female friends. I believe it's Sarah and Julie.
What were they doing inside the house?
They were sitting at the kitchen table.
And your nephew, Colin,
Sorry, guys. That's hysterical. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. It's definitely Friday Night Lies. You can tell I've live streamed 3 nights in a row. I forgot to bring myself back up on the platform. And I stopped the video for a second because I wanted to tell you that this is what we talked about last week with Nicole. If you remember, Nicole's testimony, and I have it written down right here. I wrote it down and I told some of you, the rest of you, to write it down. Nicole testified that when Brian and her and Caitlin walked into the house, she, Miss Little said to her, "Where was Colin?" or something like that. She said, "I literally bumped in or practically ran into Colin." She said he was in the hallway, foyer, whatever she called it. On his way out, he had called his ride. Now, Brian just said to us that Colin was, and that's why Jackson asked it, because this, Nicole's testimony was probably earlier that day, possibly even. They might have gone on the same day, or if not, it was the day before. So Jackson was all over that. I'm sure he wrote down Nicole said she bumped into in the hallway or the foyer, and now he's asking, where was Colin? So there's a method to his madness here, right? I don't know how much good it did other than help get the jury hung, that maybe somebody paid attention to some of these inconsistencies and wrote them in their notes. I don't remember if it was Joe that Aiden interviewed, the juror. We can talk a little bit about that too, if we want, because that was interesting on so many different ways. I pray to God that if I ever commit a crime, that I'll just choose a judge. It terrifies me that juries are this swayed, or they don't listen to evidence because they've already have their minds made up because of one or two things they heard prior. I mean, some of what Joe shared was, to me, terrifying. And then we wonder why we end up with so many people in jail for crimes they didn't commit. Yes, liars. MCAT, liars. They're all liars. Absolutely. So that was so awful. They didn't listen to anything. Yeah. I can't believe it. Like, I was literally stunned by that too. I mean, so much has happened in the last 2 weeks with his interview with the juror. And I'm wondering, are more jurors going to come out now? We'll have to see. Okay, let's go back to Brian. Sorry about that. I had the mind fade moment there for a minute. I stopped the video, but I did not mute myself. So back we go, and let's see what he has to say more about Colin. But so now Brian has Colin at the table with Brian Jr., Julie, and Sarah, not in the hallway about to leave. So that, to me, that is just huge. That points out where the lies are just right from the get-go, right?
How old was he at the time?
I believe 17 or 18.
Describe him.
In what way?
Height, weight.
So 2.5 years ago. So he was probably 5'11", maybe 6 feet, and probably 100 and, I'm guessing 175 pounds.
Big boy.
He's
not a small kid.
Right.
I mean, bigger than me, significantly.
Yes.
Athletic guy?
Yes.
Played football?
Yes.
Good at football?
Yes.
You testified that you went to the bathroom after you arrived home, correct?
Yes. After saying hi to everybody, I went to the bathroom.
Was that upstairs or downstairs?
I'm not sure. I have a bathroom downstairs. I end up not downstairs, but on that floor, and then upstairs. So I'm not sure which one I went to.
When you came
I think
back
it was
down,
upstairs.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I think it may have been upstairs, but I'm not sure.
When you came back downstairs from the bathroom, or came out of the bathroom, wherever it was, you no longer saw Colin.
Yes, prior to going to the bathroom, Colin had said that he was getting picked up.
But you never saw him leave.
No.
You didn't see him leave the house, and you didn't see him get picked up.
Hi, Clerk Tim.
I did not.
You didn't see a car outside waiting for him, correct?
I didn't, no.
You did give an initial statement on the morning of the 29th to Michael Lank, about 7 a.m., is that right?
Officer Lank was in the house at that time and speaking to all of us, really.
And you've admitted that you have known Michael Lank for many years, is that right?
Yes.
Did you see that as a problem?
In what way?
Conflict of interest?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll let him have it. Did you see that as a conflict?
No.
You were asked who was present at the house that night, the night before, right?
Yes.
You stated the following people were at the house that night, quote, in response to Officer Lank's question, at some point during the time in question. That's how he phrased the question. Who was at the house at some point during the time in question? You understood that, right?
I don't recall his question, no.
You knew that he was asking who was in the house, right?
That's right, yes.
So you mentioned Brian Albert Jr.,
Yes.
your son. You mentioned Caitlin Albert, your eldest.
Yes.
You mentioned Julie Nagel.
Yes.
You mentioned Brian Higgins.
Yes.
And then you added the detail that Caitlin Albert had left your house about 12:15 a.m., correct?
No,
You didn't say that?
I did not.
I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I forgot about this part, guys. This is good. This is really intriguing. I totally forgot about this little part here.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Correct. No recorded interviews. Absolutely
Show me
unprofessional and
I'm sorry.
ridiculous. They all should have been fired for that.
So you don't have to sit and read the entire thing. There's right at the top of this post-it, there's a word that says next. If you would read that area, that next few sentences, let me know when you're finished. oath?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Albert, did you have an opportunity to review that portion of a report?
I did.
Did that refresh your recollection about a conversation that you had along with your wife with Officer Lank?
Yes.
Isn't it true that Officer Lank asked you and your wife who else was in the house that night aside from the names already mentioned? And the names mentioned were Brian Albert Jr., Caitlin Albert, Julie Nagel, and Brian Higgins, quote, who is a friend of Brian Albert Sr., end quote. Is that right?
That's what the report says, yes.
And then the report goes on to say, they advised me that their daughter Caitlin left the house around 12:15 a.m. when she was picked up by her boyfriend, Tristan Morris, right?
That's what the report says, yes.
Do you think Officer Lank got it wrong?
Perhaps, yes.
Did you say that Caitlin left about 12:15?
No,
Did Nicole say in your presence that Caitlin left about 12:15?
she did not.
At any point, did Officer Lank ask you what time Caitlin left?
I don't recall him asking that. It was a very chaotic morning, and I don't remember him saying that.
So in fact, if he wrote that sentence in the report that you just read, he's just making that up.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I'll ask it a different way.
Sorry, guys. My screen actually froze for a minute. I had to go back and re-up the video. Hang on a second. I might have to stop sharing my screen. Sometimes it happens when you're screen sharing. I'm going to close the Twitter window. Sometimes I have too many windows open, and that can cause a little issue with the bandwidth. So sorry about that. Ice, ice, baby, cold, cold, cold. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's just a cold character. I remember this from the first time. I mean, he's just got ice water running through his veins. I mean, it's one thing to be seasoned and have testified a lot in court. And a lot of officers do get very good at it because they have to, they're trying to get that person convicted of the crime that they've been arrested for, or whatever, or a ticket, if you just simply wrote a ticket, if it was something non-major crime, but you're still trying to get that to go through the court system. So you have to be as professional as possible, and you don't want to elaborate. So, again, like I said, you are trained in the police academy how to testify in court, and you go through training during in-services as well. So some of this is just the fact that he's was a Boston police officer / detective for all those years, and he's been to court. The other part of it is that he is purposely, put on this facade of dressing up like a choir boy and trying not to say more than he absolutely has to say. Right. So Mark Stewart, that's why only 12 watching. What does that have to do with anything? Hi, Mark. Welcome. Not sure what you meant by that. We have, that's the only tech issue we've really had all night, except when my brain wasn't working and I did not mute myself. So we're a relatively new channel, Mark. We don't have a lot of people that show up live, but we've been getting some decent replay. We're trying to get out there and make ourselves known the best we can. But feel free to elaborate, because I'm happy to have any comments in the chat box that I have. I'm happy to address anything you want to talk to me about. Most cops have a little liability, not this, bro. Yeah, exactly. Likability. Yes, exactly. Thank you, MCAT. That's right. 12 strong. We are a group of 12. There's been like 12 to 20 of us on most Fridays. So I enjoy all of you. And again, I'm not here for numbers. This is not why I'm live streaming. I'm live streaming because it's my retirement years and I want to give back. And I want to stand for victims of major crimes and for victims of domestic violence. And I'm interested in the Karen Reed case. I'm interested in justice for John O'Keefe as a fellow police officer. So I wanted to start doing the Friday Night Lies to go over all the testimony. But Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have 10 other victims that we're standing for and advocating for. So I'm only looking at numbers for advocacy to get the word out about the other victims that we're standing for. And I'll show you their pictures at the end of the night, like I always do. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Kara. Who cares how many are watching live? Yeah, it just is not that important to me. I mean, I did pre-recordeds for 5 years, so I never knew what my audience was going to be. I treat this the same way. I lived back in the beginning, you guys, back in September, one night where it was a Wednesday night, and I had 2 people on my live. So you can get in your head a little bit, because you can kind of feel like, what am I doing wrong? Why aren't more people coming to my live shows? But then I kind of had to pep talk myself and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is my advocacy. And I may end up with 500 on the replay. I don't know what I'm going to get on the replay. So I have to treat this as professionally all the way through the entire live as if there were 500 live, because I don't know what the replay is going to be. My goal is to get the replay so that we can advocate for the victims that we're standing for. So, anyway, thanks, Mark. I guess we needed a little break, didn't we? All right, let us go back. And then the next break, I'm going to bring Kara up so she can tell us what she thinks of this case, new to it and having not watched the entire trial yet. I think it's great to have someone who has kind of a fresh eyes on this and who hasn't been looking at it as long as the rest of us have. So let us go back to what we're doing. The 14 of us now, Mark. And so, well, if you didn't think I had a little snark in me, Mark, because I'm 62, you'd be wrong.
If that's what Officer Lank recalls, he's just wrong, right?
Yes.
Anything else that he's wrong about in there?
I didn't read the whole report.
At no point, isn't it true that at no point during that interview did you admit or mention that Colin Albert had been at the house that night?
I don't believe I did, no.
At no point during that interview did your wife, Nicole, in your presence, admit or mention that Colin Albert was in the house that night?
No.
So did both of you conveniently forget that Colin was there?
Objection.
I'll ask it a different way.
Sustained.
Did you forget that Colin had been there?
No.
Is there a reason that you left his name out?
Because he wasn't there. He left when we got there. He wasn't there for the duration of the time that we had that night.
Except for the fact that you just testified that you never saw him leave, correct?
Well, he said he was getting picked up and then he was gone, so I assumed he left.
People say a lot of things, but you didn't see him leave and you didn't see him in the regular floor of the house, according to you, correct?
Right.
Ground floor of the house.
Right. He was no longer in my house, so he left.
Well, you didn't search the house, did you?
No.
Right. And you never saw him leave?
I didn't physically see him leave, no.
You also gave a statement to Michael Proctor later that morning. It was about noon, maybe it was in the afternoon, noon, 12:30, something like that.
Are you asking?
On the 29th, you later, after you spoke with Officer Lank, you later were interviewed by Trooper Michael Proctor over at Jim McCabe's house. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Colin's name was never mentioned then either?
No, because Colin wasn't at the house for the duration of the night.
So when they said who was in the house, talked about Brian Albert, Caitlin Albert,
Yes.
folks in the house,
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes. And there were other people in the house prior to us arriving. I didn't mention them either.
Who's that?
There were some females, friends that were over prior to our arrival, and
But you never even saw them.
no.
So you have no idea who was there and who wasn't there before you got there.
No, I know that there were people at the house prior to me getting there.
Mr. Albert, the question that had been posed to you by several officers was, who did you see in your home when you got there, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I don't believe that's how it was asked, no.
But Colin's name was never mentioned. It's left out.
I testified multiple times that Colin was there when we arrived.
Oh, you did it after the fact, right?
Yes, when I was at.
You knew that the defense knew that Colin was there.
Objection.
Sustained.
In your initial reports to the police, his name was never mentioned, was it?
I did not mention it, no.
And Nicole did not mention it in your presence, did she?
In my presence, no.
Let's talk about Caitlin Albert, your eldest. You told Officer Lank that your daughter, well, according to Officer Lank, let me rephrase the question based on our colloquy back and forth. According to Officer Lank, you're aware that he wrote he was told she was gone by 12:15, correct?
That's what he wrote in the report, yes.
If Caitlin was gone by 12:15, she would not have been there when John and Karen arrived to the house, correct? Because they didn't arrive for 15 minutes later.
But she was at the house, so that would be a hypothetical.
Okay, so fine, hypotheticals. Let me ask you a hypothetical. If in fact Caitlin was gone by 12:15, that would mean hypothetically she would not have been there when John and Karen arrived 15 minutes later.
Objection.
Sustained.
When you were interviewed by Officer Lank that morning, other people were in the room, not just you and Officer Lank, correct?
Yes, I wouldn't consider that morning to be an interview with Officer Lank.
More of a conversation.
Yes.
During that conversation, Nicole was there.
Yes.
She was in earshot.
Yes.
When she was involved in the conversation, you were within earshot.
Yes.
Brian Jr. would have been within earshot.
Brian Jr. wasn't downstairs most of that morning, so he may not have been.
But he was there for part of the morning.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that he was there at the time. Mike Officer Lank was asking questions.
The fact of the matter is, notwithstanding what Officer Lank wrote that you said about Caitlin leaving at 12:15, she did not leave at 12:15. Isn't that right?
She did not, no.
As a matter of fact, in truth, except for the people who lived there, Caitlin was the very last person to leave that location that morning, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And she's admitted that she did not leave until nearly 2 a.m., 1:45, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You're aware that she did not leave until 1:45 or thereafter. Is that right?
I believe that's around the time, yes.
Were you trying to cover for Caitlin so your daughter would not be wrapped up in this investigation?
No.
But as a reminder, when you were spoken to by the first two officers who discussed who was in the house, you never mentioned Colin was even there, correct?
Objection.
We've gone over that. Next question, please. Sustained.
If Colin was gone, just like Caitlin was gone, that would eliminate them from ever being at the house at the same time as John O'Keefe and Karen Hoover, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Okay. So interesting. I don't know about you guys, but I had completely forgotten about the whole 12:15 that Lank had written that in his report. And how many times throughout this trial have the witnesses completely said they got that wrong, blaming the police. Oh, that was too funny. That was the puppy, by the way, that just grabbed the balloon string. This was left from last Friday night lies when we were celebrating my birthday and Valentine's Day. So there we go. I love you all. Thank you for supporting Social Change Warriors. Thank you for supporting our small startup channel. actually one of the content creators said that that I was a fledgling channel. I thought that was hysterical. That was meant to be derogatory, by the way. I mean, you can use fledgling to describe things that are just startups or that are just new, but you normally wouldn't use that when you're talking about a fellow creator who's trying to stand for victims and crime and corruption, right? You would use startup, or you would use a different word. But I just find it hysterical how critical people can be and in this YouTube family, this world, because it's not always a family. It can be very cutthroat, and people can be really mean and nasty. It's unbelievable. Yes, Puppy Shark. He came out of nowhere. He was in by my son. I got to see where he went because he took something with him. Oh, here we go. We'll have a puppy moment. He is in here right now. Come on, let's say hi. We got cold and Ice King Mr. Albert. So we need a little puppy therapy right now. Here's Tanner, my new therapy dog. He gets to start his good citizen puppy training soon. And then he will eventually be a service dog. So when he's 6 months old, he can start his training. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, thank you. He was sound asleep, but he woke up during our last break. So my son took him out for me with the Doberman, with Zeus. We haven't had any possum sightings the last couple days. So here's your squishy, happy, fluffy moment compared to that cold, dark Brian Albert lying person moment. So there we go. That should bring in some viewers right there. That's what we need. We just need Tanner as the assistant. Tanner D is the assistant to my live streams, right? So, all right, let's bring Kara up. She is home. I want to get her opinion. Hi there, dear.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. I just think it's great that you decided you wanted to delve into this and get to know more about this case, and that you have now explained to everybody, how far into this are you now? How far have you gotten?
So I listened to it on a podcast, The 13th Juror. That's great. It's a great podcast for anybody who might not know it. Everybody here knows it. But I haven't heard Brian Albert's testimony yet at all. I have heard some of Jen McCabe's. I've heard Collins. He's harmless, by the way, you guys. He doesn't like to fight. But in the beginning, when you had first started talking about it to me, I thought she did it. I even said, I was like, hey, Kat,
you did. You told me that. And I said, now, not so fast.
I think she did it. And you were like, nope, you have to listen to it more and then come back. And I was like, okay. And I started that podcast. I don't think I made it through the intro. And I was like, wait, what just happened? And it literally took, I think, 2 episodes of the podcast and them saying 6 people left the house after her and not one person saw a body for me to be like, all right, she's innocent. And they're liars. They're all liars. Right.
And then I explained to you that it was actually a total of 11 people that had an opportunity to see John O'Keefe laying in the snow in the front yard. And those clips we see of the front yard are very deceiving. It makes it look a lot bigger than it is, because then there's been other clips that actually show you more of a realistic. It is not a very big front yard. There is no way in heck that all those people left that house or were peeking out the window, like Matt McCabe peeking out the window, Jen McCabe peeking out the window, Brian Albert Jr. peeking out the window, all self-admitted to be looking out the window or looking out the door. And then the others pulling up in the truck. That's 3. There were 3 in the truck that would have had headlights on, beaming right at where he would have been. And then, of course, you have Lucky as the 11th. And if anybody thinks my count is off, but I listed them all on a piece of paper for Kara when she was here having coffee with me the other day. I said, here's the 11 that would have had the opportunity, some multiple times, because Jen peeked out the window multiple times and the door. Matt looked out. Matt's testimony was, we haven't gotten to those 2 yet, but multiple times. Brian Jr. was looking for, and Julie Nagel said she looked out the window as well, looking for her brother to arrive. So all of these people, not only did they go out once to when they left, but they were looking out the window. So there's no way 11 people wouldn't have seen him laying there. There's just no way.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So Fluffy Paws. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Julie, he says his person goes right to bed. That's Colin. Yes, exactly. Yes. Oh, I mean, that could have been a Saturday Night Live episode. When we get to Colin, I'm going to have a hard time. I might have to have a glass of wine that night because it's just ludicrous how they dressed him and what they told him to say and not say. And all the times he said, I don't remember, or I don't know. I'm back. Great. Our Hawkeye is back. MCAT. Yeah, the headlights. Yeah, exactly. Julie, craziest person on earth. The headlights would have lit him up if he was there. Yeah, absolutely. And then when Higgins left, come on, right? He was supposedly parked in front of the mailbox. John's body would have been at like 11 o'clock, just straight out from the beam of those big headlights of a Jeep. And Kara, you drive a Jeep, so you know that it sits up higher.
They sit up higher. They also have running lights. They have 2 sets of lights.
Right.
They would have absolutely seen it. 100%.
Yeah.
Jeeps
And
have headlights.
when I've gotten in these little spats, some of them, like I said, have been respectful, though. I have been spatting with a couple anti-Karen readers on Twitter X, but some of these, it's mostly been ladies I've been spatting with. They've been pretty decent to me. I haven't been going with the real nasty ones. I don't try to talk to any of them. The ones that Aiden and Jen Altman and everybody else is involved with, I stay away from them because there's no talking to them. But I've actually had some decent debates with a few people who are kind of on the fence. And then one lady who's not on the fence at all, but she was very respectful. And we have sports in common. So we would talk a lot about sports as well. But unfortunately, she said something that I just thought was so off-putting, and I kind of went after her about it, and then she got mad at me, and then she blocked me. So that's a shame. And I'm still not positive that she's not what do you guys call them now? Sock puppets? Like when, right, somebody's alternate fake account. I'm still not, I think it's possible that a lot of these people that I've been debating with and that some of you have debated with on Twitter are sock puppets or are actually getting paid by someone in the McAlberts families, Alberts and McCabe's to get out there and blast social media. I would not put it past them one bit. So she doesn't follow me anymore and I've been blocked, but we did have some good discussions. And one of the ones I would keep saying to her is 11 people. You just can't, that's practically like science. That's the statistics of 11 people leaving and going and coming from that home in that amount of time and not seeing someone laying in the front yard, to me is impossible. There's no way that would happen.
I mean, how can you take any of their words for anything at face value when Brian Albert straight up says, oh, I don't even know what color Brian Higgins' Jeep is. You are in Canton. Apparently, this place is so small that everybody knows every single person, and this is a friend of yours, and you don't know what color Jeep he drives.
Right.
I can tell you what color car you drive right now. We live in a way bigger town than Canton.
Yeah, I know.
You don't know what color. So, I mean, he lies about everything. I don't know.
Their memories are only so good. Their memories are great for what they need to protect themselves, and they're terrible for anything that would implicate them.
They all say the same thing too. I was listening to the podcast and other people's testimonies, and they just say the same exact thing. It's like having a tape on repeat with different people saying the same exact word.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they were coached. They were coached with times. They were like what we just saw now. Colin cannot be in the house. Let's Link's like, well, let's see if we can sneak this in. Let's try to get Caitlin out of the house. I'll put 12:15 in my report. You can just hear it. I mean, they literally are so narcissistic and so used to getting away with murder, basically, and getting away with protecting their own. What, do you want to get down? Do you want to get down again? That that they'll do and say anything, and they'll try to slip anything past us and get in. I mean, they were trying to slip anything they could past. I just don't buy it that was a mistake, because 12:15 has nothing to do with 1:45. If it was 1:15, maybe we could give him the breath that, okay, maybe in the heat of the moment he was flustered having to interview his friend which he shouldn't have been doing, and he most certainly should have recorded. Especially if you're going to interview someone that's your friend, that's a fellow officer from another department, then you even want to record more. You want to have more accountability if you're actually interviewing someone you know or that's your friend. Let me see here. Julie says Canton is 20K. Yeah. And that's a very small town. Absolutely. MCAT, Caitlin got picked up by meathead Tristan, and they hauled attack dog out of there, that dog would have attacked Jen McCabe when she burst in the master bedroom in the morning. Yeah, for sure. If she would have burst in like she says, and I don't think she would have ever done that because she knew what the dog was capable of. So there's no way she would have ever burst into a bedroom of her sister. She would have been down there pounding on the door, ringing the doorbell, or she would have stayed down in the foyer and yelled upstairs, "Hey guys, emergency, emergency, get your asses down here," right? The normal 1 + 1 = 2 is nothing in this case because they're lying. So you don't get the normal, you don't get the normal answers, you don't get the 1 + 1 = 2 because of all the lies and corruption that is going on. So that's exactly right. So then yes, Julie says, right, Chloe doesn't like people, but loves people running into the house when people are sleeping. Come on. Exactly. So there's no way that dog was there. We all agree on that. And because there's no way that dog wouldn't have woke up barking when all of the commotion was going on up front. And for people on the anti side to say, oh, well, they came no lights and siren. They came this, no way. Even if they didn't have their sirens on, they most certainly have their lights on. And there were a lot of vehicles in that front yard. There was people talking, yelling, Karen was yelling and shouting, and Carrie, and they were shouting at each other before the police ever got there. There is no way a seasoned police officer and his wife, there's no way their bedroom was in the front yard. If the German Shepherd was there because the German Shepherd didn't do anything and did not hurt John and they were not involved, they would have been awake. They would have been outside. Brian Albert would have been at least offering to help or to let people come in from the cold and stand in his foyer. All of the normal things that should have happened that didn't happen because it was a cover up, right? So we know all of that. And then MCAT says, I don't know why Lank wrote that. I believe Caitlin was there helping Coco, the cleaning lady. Oh yeah, well, yeah, of course she was. And remember, Tristan testimony was that he was supposed to get called to work because of the snow, that he was supposed to be home sleeping. And I don't think Caitlin was ever going to get picked up. I think she was going to stay overnight. That's what would have made the most sense. Why would her boyfriend come back in a snowstorm to pick her up and go the opposite direction of where he has to go to work? None of that would make sense either. Why wouldn't she stay overnight at her parents' house in a snowstorm, right? So all of it makes zero sense. OMG, stop. He is, yeah, the puppy. Thank you. Opposite of Brian Albert. What a cutie, Tanner. Thank you. Yeah, he's a great, great dog. He has the best personality. He's just so sweet. Kara got to meet him. I forgot to send you the pictures. She got to meet him. I better find out where he went because he tootled off somewhere. Let's go back to the testimony. I'm going to go take a peek where he is, and then we'll come back and pick him apart even more. Exactly. Right. So let us return. Let me put up the proper slide here for him. There we go.
On January 29th, about 11:30 or 12, we talked about the fact that you were interviewed by Michael Proctor at Jen McCabe's house, correct?
Yes.
You knew at the time that the state police were looking to interview Jennifer McCabe about her understanding of what had happened the night before.
Objection.
Sustained.
You were notified that the state police were going to interview Jen McCabe.
Objection.
I'll allow it. Were you notified that?
No.
You knew the subject matter of an interview with Jen McCabe was going to happen the subject matter of the night before was going to happen over at Jen McCabe's house. That's why you went there, right?
Objection.
No.
I'll allow it.
No.
Isn't it true that you knew you had been notified, or at least you believed that an interview with Jen McCabe as part of an official police investigation was going to occur at her house?
Yes.
You were not asked by the police to join her, correct?
No.
You had no official reason to be at Jen McCabe's house, correct?
I don't know what you mean by official reason.
You were not working the investigation yourself.
No.
You were a witness, correct?
Right.
So you had no official reason to be at Jen McCabe's house during an interview with Jen McCabe.
Objection.
No, y'all allow it.
No.
So, but before she gave her statement, you made sure that you were right there to monitor that interview and exactly what was said, correct?
Objection.
Were you in her house when Jim McKay was interviewed by Michael Proctor?
Her house, yes,
You had gone to her house, correct?
I did.
You went there before she gave the interview.
Yes,
So you were there in her house during the entirety of her interview, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And importantly, Jim McCabe knew you were in her house during that interview, correct?
I assume she knew, yes.
I mean, you're in her house after all.
Yes.
I want to get back to 34 Fairview if I could. In the early morning hours of January 29th, Brian Higgins directly followed you into the house after you walked in, correct?
Could you rephrase that?
Sure. You walked in, even though there was some moving of cars, you were the first one to walk into the house. And Brian Higgins followed you.
Yes.
Nicole and Caitlin then came in shortly after that.
I think Nicole and Caitlin probably came in around the same time as me.
Did you make
And then Brian Higgins.
Sorry. Did you make another drink?
Okay. I was hoping he was going to say that. So remember, Nicole last Friday night, when asked where Colin was when they got there, she said, Colin was in the hallway. I practically bumped into him. He was getting ready to leave. She either used words hallway or foyer. Now, again, for the second time, Brian now, Jackson goes back to it again. He wants to get him on record again. So he asked him again, but in a different way. Who came in with you? Who came in first? And Brian says it was me and Higgins. And then Jackson says, oh, well, did Nicole and Caitlin come in a little after you then? Because then that would maybe explain why if Brian went in first, saw Colin at the kitchen table, greeted him, Colin might have gotten up and come down the hallway. And then when Nicole and Caitlin came in, she would have bumped into him. And that could have made it all true, right? But now he says, no, she would have come in with me. And that makes sense. It's cold. It's snowing. Why would Caitlin, they rode together. Why would Caitlin and Nicole come in anytime after him, more than a minute at the most, if they took a second to get their purse or had to get something out of the car and he just got out and went right in, right? So again, that makes it impossible for Nicole to bump into Colin on his way out because Brian went in first and he just testified under perjury that Colin was sitting at the table with Brian Jr., Julie, and Sarah Levinson. Kara? You're muted. Well, let me unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
I mute myself because I say bad words when I listen to them talk.
Yeah, me too.
He either didn't see him or he did see him, but he didn't really see him. They're just such liars. Nothing that they say is true.
Right. You can't literally believe anything that they say. It's shocking. But this is kind of huge to me. And I really hope that they hone in on this. And especially if obviously they're both going to get called again, will they tell it the same way? Or will one of them change their stories? I mean, one of them is lying. So either Colin was on his way out, which we don't believe he was anyway. So I think Nicole's the one who lied. But how could they have screwed that up, right? How did Lally screw up that if knowing that Brian and Nicole and Caitlin entered the house at the exact same time and he's prepping them for their testimony, how did he screw that up? Brian and Nicole should have had the exact same testimony of where Colin was in that house and how long he was in that house. So to me, this is a big thing that they can use or not use. It depends on how much they're going to go with Colin again. You know, are they just going to focus on other things for reasonable doubt? Are they going to stick with more reasonable doubt, knowing what they know now, that the jury was so overwhelmed with so much information and didn't even take into account a lot of this testimony or understand police procedure and understand how screwed up it was, because they weren't really informed of what proper police procedure is. So I think they're going to have to go about that in the second trial of explaining this is how it's supposed to have happened and this is how it happened, which was, egregious and against everything that has to do with proper police procedure when you arrive at a scene with a potential death investigation. It's going to be interesting to see what Jackson and Yannetti and all their new crew decide to focus on, and what are they focusing on? Reasonable doubt, or are they focusing on this third party culprit again? And are they going to show all the inconsistencies of was Colin there or not? This is going to be, if we get that far, with everything that's going on every week, it's a bigger mess than it was before. And who knows, maybe someone will crack before the next trial, or maybe feds will finally step in. I don't know. It's just a mess. MCAT says, suck puppets, not socks. Okay. And Colin had to drop out of college. Well, yeah, because it's just a media circus surrounding him, right? And all of the doubt, that there's reasonable doubt where he's concerned, especially, right? Was he there? Was he not there? Are they lying? Poor Tristan isn't 30 years old yet and needs memory care assisted living. Yeah, exactly. When we get to his testimony, we'll probably be able to do him and Caitlin the same night, because I don't think we're super long, especially if we don't spend a lot of time with Lally. If we go right to the crosses on both of them, we probably could do them, because that would be good to do them together where we can completely compare them. So, all right, let's go back.
Once you walked into the house,
Did I make a drink?
did you make a drink? Grab a beer?
Yes.
Okay. When I say make a drink, did you get a drink?
Yes.
What drink did you get?
I don't know. Probably just would have been whatever was at the house, a beer or something.
Okay. Did Higgins have another drink?
I don't know.
What did you do? What did you and Brian Higgins do once you were inside the house?
We just kind of hung out, talked.
At any point, did you and Brian Higgins go down to the basement?
No, I don't remember going to the basement.
You don't remember going to the basement, or you didn't go to the basement?
No, I didn't go to the basement.
Did Brian Higgins go to the basement?
Not that I know of.
And you didn't go upstairs to the second floor, did you?
I think I did go upstairs, yes.
Isn't it true that Brian Higgins has never been upstairs in your house?
Prior to that night?
Ever, including that night specifically.
I don't think that's true, no.
You owned a dog at the time, correct?
Yes.
The German Shepherd named Chloe.
Yes. Mix.
Describe that dog as being not great with strangers. Isn't that true?
I did describe it that way, yes.
You testified that, quote, it started barking because it realized that people were downstairs, end quote, right?
Yes.
Chloe had a penchant for barking when she heard people, correct?
No, not necessarily.
She did that night.
Yeah, I think she wanted to use the bathroom.
Well, that's not what you said in your testimony. You said it started barking because it realized there were people downstairs, right?
Right.
So your German Shepherd, probably a decent guard dog, if she heard commotion and people, she would bark.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Obviously, if Chloe hears commotion and people, she's apt to bark. That's the only question.
No.
So just that night, out of nowhere, first time ever, Chloe starts barking when people walk into the house.
No, it's not the first time ever, but she didn't bark often.
Okay. But she did bark that night, right?
Yes.
And the reason that you gave under oath for why she started barking was because there were people downstairs milling about, right?
Yes.
So in that instance, on January 29th, in the early morning hours, she was barking because she heard people.
Well, I can't say why she was barking.
Well, you did say why she was barking.
I let her out to use the bathroom, so I think that's probably why.
Except your testimony was it started barking because it realized there were people downstairs. Those are your words, Mr. Albert, not
Right.
mine.
Okay.
Do you stand by those?
Yes.
Okay. You ultimately did let Chloe out to go to the bathroom, correct?
Yes.
And then you allowed her to stay downstairs and you monitored her with the others who were in the house. Isn't that right?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you testified in that state grand jury, the same April grand jury, April of 2022. So I let it go out to the bathroom. I let it back in. I kind of monitored it a little because we usually don't have people over the house, and the dog's not great with strangers, period. So I was just making sure that the dog was all right with the people that were over, end quote, correct?
Yes.
So in fact, you did keep Chloe downstairs at least for a period of time with people that were over, right?
Yes, for a few minutes, I think.
Mr. Albert, after you learned that there were questions being raised about John's injuries and dog bites and scratches, in May of 2022, you got rid of that dog, did you not?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
At some point, your family got rid of Chloe.
Chloe was rehomed in May
And we can use
2022.
whatever words we want to. Rehomed, rehoused, whatever. But you got rid of her. She's no longer part of the Albert family, right?
Objection.
Allow that.
Right.
When did you get rid of her?
So Chloe was rehomed in, I believe, May
Of 2022,
of 2022.
just months after the incident we were discussing.
Well, after it was involved, she was involved in a dog fight with another dog out front.
Right, but that's also after the incident we
Yes.
were discussing.
Yes, May.
That's a family pet that you had for 6 years or 7 years.
Approximately 6 or 7 years. Not
Your
sure.
explanation just now for having gotten rid of that dog is because it bit another dog and ultimately sent 2 women to the hospital, correct?
I believe 2 women went to the hospital. Yes.
But you took no action to get rid of Chloe until after you knew that serious questions were being raised about John O'Keefe's,
Objection.
correct?
Sustained.
At some point, you did realize there were questions being raised about John O'Keefe's injuries on his arm, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Did you realize that?
I heard some talk about it. Yes.
As of January of 2022, John O'Keefe had never been in your house, had he?
John O'Keefe was never in my house before or after that date.
Certainly, John O'Keefe, you would agree with me, he would count, were he in your house, he would count as a stranger.
Okay, did you guys catch that? He said John O'Keefe was never in my house before or after that date.
Yeah.
Now, it could have just been, that he's just trying to say John O'Keefe was never at my house and he was never at my house. Well, obviously, after that date. So
Right.
why would he say that? He's dead.
Yeah.
Isn't that just the weirdest thing to say? John O'Keefe was never at my house before or after that date. Well, that is just, to me, one of the weirdest things he said of his whole
Considering
testimony.
the fact that you guys supposedly said he's never been there. Yep. They're liars. They're such liars.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that one was really quite something. And yeah, that it just stuck out to me the first time and I wanted to stop it and say it again. But it's I like the way Jackson handles him. That's why he took him on, because he knew Brian was going to be difficult and tough, because he just knew he was probably going to go this cold ice man. I'm sure he wasn't prepared for the Mr. Rogers outfit, but I'd love to have been inside Jackson's head when Albert walked in with that Mr. Rogers outfit on. But the whole cold demeanor and the yes and the no's and not really elaborating. And again, who calls their dog it? Both Nicole and Brian called their dog it. I have had a dog, luckily, in my life, and multiple since I was 21. Never, ever, ever have I referred to my dog or any of my kitty cats that I've had and rescued as an it. That to me is so bizarre. It's cold. It's just really weird. So there's just so many little things. I also don't buy the whole upstairs thing. First of all, if Brian Higgins and him were, they were friends, but I don't the upstairs is just the bedrooms. Most people don't go upstairs in people's houses. I've been to friends' houses. I've never been upstairs if they have an upstairs. I've been to friends' houses that I've never been down the bedroom wing, because most people's homes have half baths nowadays. You know, back in the old days when nobody had a half bath, everybody had one bathroom in their house, or maybe two if they were lucky, but that'd be different. But there's no way anybody needs to go upstairs. And why would Brian Higgins go upstairs to where their kids' bedrooms are in their bedrooms? No. There's no way. I don't buy that, because even he hesitated a little bit and said, well, no, I don't think that's true. Well, why would Brian Higgins be upstairs in your house? There's no reason for that. So there was definitely a lie going on, because remember, they used that whole thing that he and Higgins left the party so he could show him pictures of their son who's in the military, and where those pictures are supposedly upstairs now, you know. And then there was other testimony that contradicted that it sounded like the pictures were on the main level, and if they had to go upstairs, it's because they were in the basement, and they would have had to have gone upstairs to look at the photos. But none of that would have happened anyway, because if they got in this fight and John was passed out and incapacitated, nobody's looking at photos. So again, that's just all a staged lie, in my opinion. Yeah, lies are hard to remember. The truth is easy to remember. Exactly. I mean, the truth is the truth. If you don't forget something, now you may forget that you went out to dinner with somebody 5 years ago. You may not remember. Obviously, none of us remember every little thing we did even 2 months ago or 3 months ago. But major things, like parties and festivals and birthday parties and events, and of course this, yes, you are going to remember, because the truth is the truth. Where when you tell lies and when you have to make shit up and you have to be coached what not to say, and don't say that, and be careful you don't do this, it can get very convoluted and messed up. A couple times he's really pursed his lips because he's stressed, and whatever Jackson's saying is stressing him out. So you can kind of see him really squeezing those lips tight, but he's maintained that no emotion facade. I kept thinking at least he broke at least once and like smiled or seemed a little bit casual with Jackson, but so far it has not happened. So, all right. Thanks guys. Back we go.
Stranger to Chloe. Never met her.
Hypothetically, yes.
I want to ask a couple of questions about your house. I know there's multiple bedrooms. Are all the bedrooms on the top floor?
Yes.
Okay. How many bedrooms?
5.
As we're looking at your house from the street, looking at your house, are your bedroom windows, your and Nicole's bedroom windows, visible from the street?
Yes.
Which windows would they be?
If you were facing the house, they would be far left corner.
Upper or lower?
Upper.
Upper left corner.
Yes.
How many windows? 3 or 2 serve as that?
2.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, could I display Exhibit 66?
Okay.
Do you see what is displayed on that television?
Yes.
What does that appear to be to you?
The house at 34 Fairview Road.
Okay. Understanding this is a graphic representation, not a photograph. Do you see the windows that you've just described servicing your bedroom on that photograph, that graphic?
Yes.
Are they?
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside and get the bearskin tactical hoodie.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Upper left, 2 windows, correct?
Yes.
And those overlook what part of the lawn?
The front lawn.
Okay. Front lawn toward the left side of the house, not toward the driveway, correct?
Right. I mean, it's the whole front lawn, but yeah.
Right. So they're toward the left side of the house.
The windows are, yes. I thought you asked about the view.
Right.
So the view is the whole front yard.
I'm just trying to make the record, the spoken record, as clear as possible.
Right.
They're on the left side of the house.
Yes.
They directly overlook this portion of the lawn, the left side of the lawn.
Yes.
furthest from the driveway.
Yes.
We can take that down. Where's your bed, or where was your bed inside that room as relates to the windows?
I'm just trying to think of how to describe it. So the bed would be in the middle of the bedroom.
Okay, it's a bad question on my part because we haven't done that. Let's do it this way. How many feet from the windows would the closest part of your bed be to those windows?
Maybe 5 feet. 6 feet.
You indicated that Nicole came to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Where was the dog?
The dog was in my room.
And she was sleeping on a mat in your room.
Yes.
And that mat is also about 6 feet from the windows.
Yes.
6 feet being from me to Miss Little, maybe this far?
Could be, yes. Maybe a little further, but yes.
Maybe this far?
Maybe.
It's a relatively quiet street generally, Fairview.
Yes.
Not an enormous amount of through traffic,
No.
not a busy freeway or a highway, correct?
No.
Not an especially noisy street,
The street, no.
especially at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning, right?
Right.
Where were you at 6:03 on the morning of January 29, 2022?
I was sleeping in my room.
6 feet from that window.
Yes.
Was Nicole in bed with you?
Yes.
Had you taken any medication the night before?
No.
Were you on any sedatives?
No.
Sleeping pills?
No.
Were you wearing a sleep apnea machine?
No.
Were you wearing an eye mask?
No.
Were you wearing earplugs?
No.
I'm sorry, can you see Brian in like an eye mask?
You shortly thereafter
perfect.
became aware that 6 emergency vehicles, including a fire engine, police cruisers, and unmarked police vehicles, a civilian SUV, were all parked in front of your house that morning, correct?
I'm not aware of what type of vehicles were parked there, no.
You seen photographs since this incident?
Of the vehicles out front?
Right.
No.
Are you aware that all of those vehicles had their engines running?
No.
Are you aware that all the emergency vehicles at least had their lights on, flashing lights?
No.
Were you aware that there were first responders outside their vehicles traipsing around your lawn?
Was I aware?
Were you aware at the time?
No.
Were you aware that there were emergency responders, first responders, who were talking to each other over the din of the wind and the snow?
What?
To communicate with each other?
No.
You're aware that there were 3 women on your lawn at one point?
Just only after the fact.
And at least one of those women was screaming to the top of her lungs at 6:03?
No.
Again, your German Shepherd was 6 feet from the window, correct?
I don't know that for sure.
That's where Matt was.
Well, that doesn't mean that's where she always is. She also sleeps in the closet area sometimes.
Oh, so now Chloe's in the closet.
I didn't say she was in the closet. I said she sleeps in the closet area sometimes.
Was she sleeping in the closet area that morning?
I don't remember.
Likelihood is she's sleeping on that mat 5 or 6 feet from that window, correct?
Objection.
I don't know.
System.
And your explanation, and by the way, we've already talked about this. Earlier that day, you've already indicated she was barking because she heard people and noises downstairs when you guys came in the house.
Yes.
And your explanation is that you and Nicole and Chloe, the German Shepherd, all slept through the entirety of that commotion on your front lawn.
Yes.
To be clear, you are a trained first responder.
Yes.
Yet during that entire event, after you were awakened, all that chaos on your front lawn, you never came out of your house to assist or investigate in any manner whatsoever, did you, Mr. Albert?
Once I was awakened?
Correct.
No.
we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to ask you a couple of other questions about the layout of the house. The house is sitting on top of a basement, correct?
Yes.
Or was at the time. Describe how you get to the basement from inside the house if you come in the front door. And when I say, I'm sorry to do this, I don't mean to interrupt you. There's 2 front doors that you can go in, correct?
Yes.
For purposes of my question, Mr. Albert, I'm going to talk about the one that's right in front of you, the obvious one, as the front door, and the one to the right of it as you're looking at the house is the side door. Okay?
Okay.
Because I don't know how else to describe it. If you come in the front door, describe for the jurors, where is the basement door as compared to that?
So you walk straight ahead. You pass the kitchen dining room area opening on your right-hand side, and there's a door on the left.
How many paces? The door opens. How many paces to walk over and grab that door handle?
I'm not sure, maybe 10?
10 full paces.
Maybe, yeah.
So
Nicole said 5.
Maybe 8, maybe 8.
Mr. Albert, it's
Close
about
enough.
4 long steps, correct?
Well, I don't know. You asked paces, so, 6 feet,
6 feet.
6 to 8 feet, maybe.
Got it. What was the basement used for in January of 2022?
So the basement had a weight room in one of the rooms, and the other room was nothing at the time. It had been damaged, or water damage, due to an overflowed toilet.
So part of the flooring had been ripped up,
Yes.
and that opened up some slab concrete downstairs.
Yes.
There was also some plywood downstairs.
Yes.
There were a couple of mats where the actual weights were, so they're not slamming down onto concrete.
Yes.
But there was a good amount of that floor that was just exposed concrete.
Yes.
The workout equipment would include things like what? Barbells, dumbbells,
Yes.
heavy weights,
Yes.
heavy bars.
Yep.
Made from metal.
Yep.
Once you're down in the basement, by the way, there's 2 flights that you go down at angles to get to the basement. A series of steps, a landing, take a left, another series of steps, and you stand on the basement.
Yes. Not a long staircase, very small, but
Right. I mean, it's narrow and tight, but in other words, you don't just walk straight down a staircase. You go down to a landing, turn left,
turns a little.
go down, turn left again, and now you're in the basement.
Yes.
If you wanted to move something large or heavy out of that basement without having to go through the house, could you do that?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Could you rephrase the question?
I'll say it again. If you wanted to move something large or heavy out of that basement without having to go through the main house, could you do that?
Yes. I mean, it would depend what it was, obviously, how big it was, or
How would you do that?
there's a bulkhead door you can use.
Got it. Where does that bulkhead door come out of?
It comes out to the backyard right at the kitchen area. You can see it from the kitchen.
And right to the left of that is the side fence.
Yes.
And directly through that side fence is the front yard.
Yes.
The same side of the front yard as John O'Keefe's body was found.
Yes.
Your Honor, I would ask at this point to mark a video. Let me have just a moment.
Yes.
So did you guys notice that during that section of the testimony, his shoulders were like tightening and he was moving his mouth around a lot? I think he was getting cotton mouth. It'd been a while since he'd taken a drink, and stress, anxiety, that causes cotton mouth. You've all had it. We've all had it. And then he was making some odd facial features, like gestures with his cheeks and his mouth, in his mind is clicking like, oh shit, Jackson's about to go down that road. And so his body language, I mean, he's very good at covering it, but there are tells. He has tells when he gets extra anxiety about what Jackson is asking him, or he knows he's about to ask him. So I found that interesting the first time, and this is only the second time I'm watching it. So I mean, I've seen little clips of him here and there with microdots and everybody else that puts up the, just the small clips of him saying something, but I haven't watched his whole testimony since the first time. So I'm definitely picking up on his tells of anxiety and of that fight or flight thing that happens with cortisol when it rushes through our bodies and causes that cotton mouth sensation. It causes your facial features to do weird things. And that's definitely going on right now because he's anticipating what Jackson is going to allude to here, and he's not liking it, right? So question, we are at 2:35. I just looked ahead. He's got another hour. So I think personally, I had 2 long nights, Wednesday and Thursday. For me personally, I think I would like to go a little bit longer tonight and then finish up with Brian. And then let's take a quick look. Or actually, I'm going to ask one of you to do that for me because I want to, and I'll do it too and see how quick I can find it. I don't remember who comes next, but we'll finish up with Brian and we'll go right into who's next Friday Night Lies. We're just not going to get through it. I don't have a 4-hour live stream in me tonight. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to start to lose my voice. I can already feel it from Wednesday and Thursday. So let's go a little bit longer and have a little bit of a chat to end out tonight. And then we'll finish up Brian and whoever is next Friday night. If that's okay with all of you, let me know. I hope so. And let's go back now and see how this all goes. But keep an eye on his, he gets kind of a tick on his right eye. I actually get one because of my nerve damage in my neck from my injury when I was a police officer. When I'm super overtired or when I'm stressed, my eye twitches or my lip will twitch. And that's all from stress. And it can be something simple even, but I can't control it because it's central nervous system related. And so when people are under stress, like he is on the stand like that, little things can happen. You can get the eye quiver. You could get a lip quiver. He can, he's moving his mouth around. There were definite signs of cotton mouth that I saw for sure. And you saw he reached for the water bottle right before I paused. So keep an eye open for those things because they are tells, and they kind of tell you if he's getting ready to lie or not. All righty. I'm game for whatever you decide. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate you. So we'll go a little bit longer and then we will finish Brian next Friday night and then we'll bridge into who's next. And I'll look that up right now. Yeah, exactly, Julie. Yeah, his mouth tells on him. It really, truly does. He does a lot of pressing of the lips, and there's a lot of movement on each side of his mouth. Yeah, for sure. Okay, back we go.
Mr. Jackson, would you like to take the morning recess?
That'd be great. Good time. Yes, thank you.
Morning recess. That's good time.
This photograph, Mr. Albert. And if you could please tell me if you recognize what's depicted in that photograph.
Yes, it's the bulkhead stairway.
Is that the stairway that you earlier described for the jurors as servicing the basement going into the backyard?
Yes.
Yes.
I would have asked to have this marked as next in order.
Any objection? Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Move to publish, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do you see what's depicted on the television screen?
Yes,
Does that appear to be the same as what you're holding right there, that exhibit?
it does. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to direct your attention, if I could, to the lower left portion of this photograph. And right there. Do you see that? Tell me what that is.
I can't.
Let me highlight it one more time, right there. Maybe it's easier if you look on your photograph.
Are you referring to the doorknob? Yeah, I got it here. Yes.
I'm sorry, it's sort of hidden on that photograph, so I apologize. Is that the door that swings open or closed to close off the basement?
Yes.
Then if you open that door, it's in the open position now, correct?
Yes.
So the photographer is standing in the basement looking toward the doorway, correct?
Yes.
Then you climb 7 or 8 stairs,
Yes.
and that bulkhead door, which is where all the light is emanating, how does that open?
So the bulkhead door opens straight up.
Okay, at least in that photograph, it was hinged toward the house and would open up like a, I don't know, like a sandwich or something.
It opens straight up to the bay windows that are in the kitchen.
Got it, okay. Okay, that's all I need for that photograph. Your Honor, I have a flash drive with a video on it. I'd ask that this be marked as next in order. Court's permission.
Assuming it's the same one, no objection.
It's the same one.
Exhibit 69.
Mr. Albert, I want to ask you to take a look in just a second at a video and then describe if you recognize what's in that video. I'll probably play maybe 5 or 10 seconds of it and then pause it. If that's okay.
Okay.
With permission?
Yes.
Pause. Do you recognize what's depicted in that video, at least up to that point?
No.
Does that look like your basement door, although the bulkhead doors have been replaced different?
The whole thing looks different to me.
Let's go ahead and play the video. Pause. Now do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yes.
What is that?
So that's was my backyard.
Okay. And what area is over to the left over here?
That's a gate
Okay. And what does that gate open up to?
to the front yard.
So the area that we're looking at right now, where the photographer is standing, is the backyard.
Yes.
Now, having seen that, notwithstanding the way that the bulkhead doors open, now do you recognize what was depicted at the beginning of the video, which was that staircase?
Yes. The downstairs door, the door itself, the wooden door itself also looks different.
Okay, so, but it is
But it is the stairway. Yes.
going into the basement?
Yes.
Or coming out of the basement?
Yes.
So in other words, another way to put that is that represented the ingress and egress through the bulkhead to the basement.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this.
Why do so many folks over 40 with type 2 start walking like this? If you take metformin and notice a sudden loss of strength in your muscles, especially your legs, then pay close attention.
Stop. Did you recognize what was depicted in the video? Bring the lights up. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Did you recognize what was depicted in the video as it continued to play?
Yes.
Describe that for the jurors, please.
It looked like the video was from walking from the backyard towards the front yard.
So the video started at the bulkhead door, turned toward the fence, went through the fence, and right up toward the flagpole, correct?
Yes.
Is that an accurate representation of the layout of the house when you lived there on January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
With the exception of the bulkhead door having been replaced and maybe the basement door.
Yes.
By the way, The 34 Fairview house had been in your family at that time in 2022 for 2 generations?
My parents built the house in the late 70s, 79 maybe.
So if your parents are 1 generation, you and your family are another generation, 2 generations.
Right.
Nearly, maybe actually a little more than 50 years, half a century.
That what?
It was the Albert home.
Yes.
The fact is, you listed that house for sale for the first time ever in November of 2022, correct?
That's the time we listed it, yes.
Just months after John O'Keefe was found on your lawn.
Objection.
Sustained.
Mr. Albert, is that timing, according to you, a coincidence?
Is what?
Is that timing a coincidence?
Well, that's not the timing, actually. We contacted the realtor in 2021, finally listed it in 2022.
Got it.
So that would be pre-incident.
So the listing coming 9 months after John O'Keefe was found dead in your lawn, or dying in your lawn, that's just coincidence. You had this in place long before that.
Objection.
So I'll sustain the question. You can ask it differently.
Sure. All I'm asking is the timing, November of 2022, listing that house for sale for the first time in November, that in your mind is just a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence because we started trying to look into selling the house in 2021, which was the few months prior to the incident.
On January 28th, 2022, you were still an active Boston police officer, correct?
Yes.
What was your job title in January 2022?
Sergeant detective.
That means you not only respond to incidents, you actually conduct investigations as a detective, correct?
Yes, primarily fugitive investigations.
You have additional training in order to hold the title and hold a position as a detective. Is that right?
Yes.
Not just a regular patrol officer. You have to have special training to get to the rank of detective. Is that right?
Yes.
As a sergeant detective, that's above a regular detective, indeed, because you're a supervising detective. Is that right?
Yes.
You have experience in training in order to hold that position as a supervisor in the detective spot as well.
Yes, there's civil service tests for the rank, but yes.
And you've investigated crimes. I mean, I'm guessing just a ton of different types of crimes, including assaults, manslaughters, homicides, kidnappings, things of that nature.
No.
You've never investigated anything like that.
No.
So what's the parameters of your investigative skills as you held that title of sergeant detective?
So my parameters were investigating fugitive investigations. That was my specialty, I guess you could say.
So you've responded obviously to countless incidents and scenes as both a patrol officer
Yes.
as well as a detective.
Yes.
You've supervised the investigation of at least the fugitive type of crimes, correct?
Yes.
Fugitives trying to thwart investigators to try to find them, right?
Yes.
That's their whole, it's the cat and mouse thing, right?
Right.
You being the cat, correct?
Sometimes.
Find the mouse.
Yes.
You're also trained in techniques, obviously any detective would be trained in techniques that culprits might use or suspects might use to sort of cover up investigations. To cover up crimes, to thwart investigations, correct?
Objection.
Do you have that training, sir?
No.
So you, in all of your training, 30 years as a Boston police officer, and as a sergeant detective, you don't have any training in what techniques criminals might use to try to cover up their conduct?
No. I've never gone to a training for criminals to cover up conduct. No.
Never been trained in the fact that, I don't know, somebody might want to clean up the blood at a scene?
No.
Objection.
Well, the answer stand.
What about sanitizing a location?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No.
What about getting rid of electronic data? You've got to have training in that.
No.
In other words, the fugitives that you chase down and try to find, you don't try to utilize electronic data to go after them?
Sometimes we do, but I don't have any training in it per se.
Things like GPS data and phone calls and text messages, communications, things of that nature, obviously.
Yes. Yes.
Clearly. These are all things that, at least those things, are things that if you didn't have formal training, you.
So yeah, I mean, he's definitely lying here because you can't investigate a crime if you don't know how the criminal committed the crime, right? I mean, so it makes no sense. Like, who does he think he's fooling here? I mean, I can't believe he would be so obvious to lie about not knowing about these different elements of committing a crime. That just makes zero sense to me. It's so easily disproven that in his, especially at his level, I mean, a patrol officer may not get training in in how to clean up blood, but honestly, you do. I just wish I could remember how it was presented. It's been so long that I was in the police academy, but you learn all kinds of aspects of how crimes are committed, or how a criminal tries to hide his crime or conceal his crime, right? You have to know about all that. They need you to. And at his level, there would certainly have been some kind of training about this. I mean, again, unless he's trying to pick apart the question and, did you actually have a specific class about how to clean up blood? And so in his mind, he's not lying because he's reading the question how he wants to hear it, right? That could be possible with what he's doing with his whole masking thing. But if not that, then he's definitely lying. It wouldn't be that hard to disprove. I mean, you could simply try to look it up and investigate and research to see what type of training they get at that level. But it's not that important in the long run, because we know most of the time that he is lying to cover this up. So as Julie said, wow, what a lie. Yeah, exactly. Or removing blood drops in stone with red Solo cups and leaf blowers. Yeah, exactly. And Julie did some testing. So this is going to be interesting when she figures out her tech and how to share it with us, because she has some theories as to why they brought those leaf blowers out. And I agreed with her. So hopefully one of these Fridays we'll get a chance to see some of the testing she's done, because it was really spot on and really clever. All right, let's go back for a little bit and then we're going to close it up for the night.
You got on the job training and just have common sense about how to go after this type of evidence, correct?
Yes.
Sir, you had an iPhone with a number ending in 0888 back in January 2022, did you not?
Yes.
How many years did you have that iPhone as of January 28th, 2022?
Of several years, I'm not sure how many, but multiple years.
And Mr. Albert, you were notified by the Commonwealth that on September 23rd, 2022, in the fall of 2022, a judge specifically ordered that you were to preserve that phone.
Objection, Your Honor.
Correct?
I'll see counsel at sidebar.
Mr. Albert, you were notified by the Commonwealth.
That's interesting. I wonder why they had to go to sidebar on that. Do you guys have any? I wish we had a lawyer that we could get to join us on Friday nights. I've reached out to a couple of them, but they're not reaching back to me. But it would be really cool if we could, because some of these these reasons for sidebars, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand it, and it'd be cool to have it explained to us. So why wouldn't he be able to ask about that, right? Because there was a preservation order on his phone. That's just something that needed to be known. The jury needs to know that, right? So, it's Julie. Boomer love. I identify as a boomer technology wise. Oh yeah. Well, I'm a little older than you, Julie. I am a boomer. I was born in 63. So I just made it. I was almost in, my sister's 5 years younger than me. I'm almost in her generation. I forgot what comes after boomers, but my mom and I are actually in the same generation because we're only 20 years apart. So my mom she just made it, as well. And then, my mom was at the beginning of it because she was a World War II baby. She was born right before my grandfather left for the war. And he didn't get to see her till she was like 3 years old. So, and then I just barely made it in 63. Some of the things you look at say boomer goes to 64, some say 61 or 62. So, but I consider myself, just barely making it into the greatest generation of all times, right? The boomers. So yeah, it's because they both destroyed their phones. Yeah, but again, that Jackson should be able to ask about that, ask about the preservation order. I may have to see if I can find a lawyer to help me with this one. It might have been covered by somebody at some time, but given all the live streams that are out there and all the information, it would take any of us, God only knows how long, to find it. But I would love to know why they had to go to sidebar on that. So, all right, back we go for a little bit.
That on September 23rd, 2022, a judge specifically ordered you to preserve that phone and all its data, the phone ending in 0888. Is that right?
Yeah, at what time are you asking me that I was notified?
That day or the next?
On the 23rd?
On the 23rd or the 24th of September?
No.
Isn't it true that you were provided a letter by the Commonwealth that stated the following? Your Honor, if I may read this.
Yes, there's no objection.
Thank you. Quote, you are hereby notified that the defense in the case of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, Norfolk Superior Court criminal case number 22-117, has filed a motion pursuant to Mass R. Crim P. 17 for the production of any cell phones that you used between January 28, 2022 and February 28, 2022. And or any data associated with those cell phones. The hearing on Ms. Reed's motion will be held on October 3rd, 2022 at 2 p.m. in courtroom 1 of the Norfolk Superior Court. You may be heard on the motion at that time. You are hereby placed on notice that these cell phones are the subject of pending litigation, and you must not alter, delete, destroy, or in any way manipulate any of the electronic data associated with the cell phone at issue. You received, end quote, you received that notice on either the 23rd or the 24th. Is that right?
I did not.
Honor, I would pose a stipulation. I spoke with counsel off the record, if I may.
You both have a stipulation that I haven't seen?
We just determined I'm happy to approach it.
Why don't we approach quickly?
I'm still just kind of stunned with some of the things that Joe shared with Aiden when he did the interview with the juror about how there were so many of these testimonies of these critical, getting rid of cell phones, both he and Brian Higgins, that there's your reasonable doubt right there. You there's so much reasonable doubt. The jury doesn't have to figure out who did it. None of us have to figure out who did it. We just need to know that Karen didn't do it and that she deserves reasonable doubt, because that's the law. That's our judicial system in America, that if there's reasonable doubt, and in Massachusetts, it's not even just reasonable doubt, it's to a moral certainty. You guys in Massachusetts, those of you that are from there, you have that higher caveat that a lot of states don't have. So how in the world did any of those jurors not find her innocent because of all this reasonable doubt and the whole thing that they had to have it above a moral certainty? I still can't come to terms with that. It doesn't make sense. Well, that was perfect time. I decided to let it roll because sometimes moving the little trigger thing is harder than just to let it roll.
Yes, I would offer the following stipulation that on either September 23rd or September 24th, the Commonwealth sent a letter on Commonwealth letterhead to Mr. Albert's attention, stating exactly what was just read into the record pursuant to the court order dated September 23rd, 2022.
Okay. All right, next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Isn't it true that you were in fact ordered to preserve your cell phone by the Commonwealth?
At some point, I was made aware of that, yes.
All right, let's just get to the brass tacks. Where's your phone?
My phone was upgraded and traded in for a new phone.
Your phone was upgraded and traded in for a new phone?
Yes.
Okay. Another way to say that is you traded your phone in and got rid of it, correct?
I traded my phone and upgraded it, yes.
When did you get rid of your phone ending in 0888?
I upgraded my phone in September, third week of September, maybe around 22nd.
The 22nd of September.
I believe so. I can't be sure of the exact date.
So according to you, you got rid of the phone that was the subject of a court order preservation the day before it was ordered preserved, right?
Rephrase the question, please?
This order was just stipulated. This order is dated September 23rd, 2022. It was just stipulated that on the 23rd or 24th, you were then sent a notice to preserve the phone. And your testimony is on the 22nd, the day before this all happened, you upgraded your phone and got rid of it in total, correct?
I upgraded my phone on and around the 22nd, yes.
And you knew that all of the data on that phone would be factory reset and destroyed.
Objection.
Do you know that, sir?
I do not know that.
How many times have you upgraded your phone in your iPhone?
I'm not.
He most certainly knows that. Now, not all of us are as techie as others, but we've all had cell phones long enough that we know exactly what happens when we get a new phone. I mean, like the things that he expects people to believe, but it worked because the jury did not take into account really any of these nefarious, obvious acts. And that's that scares me for Karen for trial number 2. It really does. That interview with Joe was really telling, and Aiden was really fortunate that he was willing to speak with him, and I think he's the only one, that's come out and was willing to talk. And so much of what he said about what the jury did and did not consider was important or mattered was quite stunning to me. I'm going to have to go back and listen. In fact, maybe not next week, but maybe in a couple of weeks when we have maybe we have a night where we have someone whose testimony wasn't quite as long, maybe Tristan's or one of those nights. I'd like to go back and look at that with you guys and get your take on some of it, because some of it was very disturbing to me about a jury and what a jury considers, especially this jury, just really kind of concerning to say the least. So, all right, we need to finish for the night. I'm running out of steam. So let's finish this portion up and then we'll take our break and we'll resume next Friday with Brian again.
Sure. 4 or 5 times, maybe.
You're aware that when you turn a phone in and you upgrade it, the phone that you turn in, that data is factory reset, meaning it's gone. It's destroyed off of that device, correct?
Well, I think some data transfers and some doesn't.
We're not talking about a backup. I'm talking about the physical phone. That physical phone becomes a brick when you turn it in, correct?
Correct that it becomes a brick? I don't know.
It becomes effectively a brick. There is no data left on the phone. I'm not talking about backup data onto a cloud. I'm talking about that phone.
So the old phone, yes.
Yeah, it's just everything on it's destroyed, correct?
Right, although some of the data transfers to your new phone.
And you're aware that the very data that you were ordered to preserve would have been destroyed, according to you, the day before.
Jackson gets so emotional here because it's just so ludicrous, right?
Rephrase your question or ask me a question.
Are you claiming that you got rid of your phone on the 22nd?
I upgraded my phone around that. I'm not sure if that's the exact date, but yes.
So it could have been after the 22nd.
I don't think it was after the 22nd.
Could have been the 24th?
No.
Could have been the 25th?
No.
So you're absolutely sure that you could not have upgraded your phone and gotten rid of it anytime after the 23rd when this judge ordered that it be preserved?
No.
Because you know that if you got rid of that phone after you had been notified that you were ordered by a court to preserve it, you'd be committing a felony.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
So you now claim that you got rid of the phone on September 22nd, 2022. Hours before you were ordered to preserve it. That's your testimony, correct?
Yes.
Is that just a coincidence?
September 4th was my birthday. The phone was broken and failing. I had planned on getting a new phone, and that just happened to be the day that I got it.
Happy birthday. Was that a coincidence?
Love it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Yeah, he's not liking this at all. is
You
he?
were asked at another hearing in June of 2023 that
Yes,
exact
Julie.
question, correct? Whether it
Not
was a
too many
coincidence.
times, though,
Do you remember that?
thankfully.
I don't.
You recall being asked, quote, "So it's just a coincidence that within minutes, hours, or days,
Objection, Your Honor.
Let's hear the question first.
within minutes, hours, or days
Red
of you
Racer,
trading in your
thanks for
phone,
joining
that
us.
phone you had in January of 2022, that you were ordered to preserve it?" Answer, yes. Question, that's a coincidence? Answer, yes.
Objection. Move to strike.
I'll let that stand.
That was your
Yes. Thank you for joining us, Red Racer. And Red Racer says, I just got a new phone and all of the logs and text message from last 3 phones are all on my new phone. Yeah, for sure. They can download if you're willing to, they help you. You can stay there when you get your new phone. I just went when I was visiting California in September, my friend needed a new phone and she asked me if I wouldn't mind coming with her just before we went out to eat so she could just get it done. And she was busy while I was there. So anytime I could get with her, I wanted to have. So I went along and yeah, she got her new phone. We had to wait because he had to help her download everything. She didn't want to lose anything. So it's called modern technology, Mr. Albert, right? Julie says, were you this combative with the defense attorneys in court? A lot of these witnesses, no, we were told not to ever be combative. We were told to be cooperative, tell the truth, obviously facts, try not to be too wordy. And I can be a wordy person. So that wasn't always easy, but yeah, I mean, and I wasn't involved in any unaliving cases. So there wasn't obviously as much on the line, but still you are trained how to testify in court when you are called to go to court. Some of my fellow officers went to court way more than I did because they wrote a lot more tickets than I did. So that you're going to go to court more when you write more tickets. So that's just the statistics of it all. But yeah, I would never be combative with anybody. I have respect for the whole judicial system, whether it be the prosecution or the defense. So the behavior by all of these witnesses, we saw it with Katie, with Chris, with Julie, with Nicole. Nicole, not as much, but they're all just nasty. Their behavior with Lally is completely different than their behavior with the defense. And if you're a witness and you should want the truth. If you're not part of this in any way, shape, or form, you should want the truth. But you can just feel their hatred of Karen Reed, and then in essence, then their hatred of her attorneys, right, that are representing her. And it's just not acceptable that they behave this way. But we'll keep seeing it because they all testified with a lot of like hatred towards Karen. And you caught it a couple times where he purposely called her the defendant, right? That's just, that's a dig. That's just getting, a dig in there instead of calling her Miss Reed or Karen. Absolutely. All right, let's let him finish just with this, and then we're going to pause for the night.
Your testimony, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's what you're saying today to these jurors. Just a coincidence.
Yes.
Did you and Brian Higgins agree with each other that you were both going to get rid of your phones?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
You testified at the other hearing in June of 2022, quote, "I don't recall saying that I was going to get rid of my personal phone to Brian Higgins. I may have said that, there's personal stuff on my personal phone, but I don't recall saying that to him, but I don't know. We had multiple conversations about things," end quote. You remember testifying to that?
Yes.
So you're not ruling out the fact that you may have told Brian Higgins that you intended to get rid of your phone, correct?
No.
You're not ruling out the fact that Brian Higgins may have told you that he intended to get rid of his phone.
No, I don't remember him saying that to me.
Your testimony was, quote, "I know there were conversations about the phones. I just can't say if he was going to get rid of his phone or not," end quote. You testified to that, didn't you?
Yeah, I have no idea what he was going to do.
I'm asking, are those your words? Did you testify to that under oath?
Yes, although I don't know the context of the time that they were asking that question?
June of 2020.
No, not the date of the hearing, but when they were asking if and when that conversation took place.
Does it really matter when it took place?
I think so, yes.
Well, you talked to Brian Higgins about getting rid of your phones. When do you think you had that conversation?
I don't think I talked to Brian Higgins about getting rid of my phones.
Well, you just said you can't rule out the fact that you had conversations with Brian Higgins about your phones and possibly getting rid of your phones. Right?
No, I don't think that's what I said.
You two discussed the fact that you both wanted to get rid of your phones.
I don't remember having that conversation with Brian Higgins at all.
Your testimony was, quote, "I know there were conversations about the phones, sir." Correct?
Correct that that's what you're reading.
So if you're having conversations with Brian Higgins about the phones, what the heck were you talking about?
I don't know the timing of when they asked when those conversations were.
Mr. Albert,
So
I'm leaving it open to you. I don't care when it was. I'm asking you, have you ever had a conversation with Brian Higgins about your phones, respectively?
we may have, I can't remember that conversation specifically.
Then why in June of 2023 did you testify, "I know there were conversations about the phones" with Brian Higgins, end quote?
I'm not sure of the context of that.
So now you just can't remember.
No, I don't think I could remember during that testimony either. I think if you read the whole thing, I think I said, I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Your quote was, "I know there were conversations about the phones. I just can't say if he said he was going to get rid of his phone or not," end
Right.
quote.
Right.
Does that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
So now as you sit here and you answer my question, did you and Brian Higgins have a conversation about your phones?
I don't remember having that conversation with Brian Higgins.
All right, let's shift gears.
Perfect time to stop. That is nuts, right? I mean, there is no way he is not going to remember having that kind of a conversation involving the death of John O'Keefe in his front yard of his home. There's just no way. I mean, like I said, you don't remember everything you do in a 2-year span, but that he's going to remember. So he was definitely told by Lally or by whoever on the prosecution side that, say you don't remember, say you don't recall, because that there's just no way. If they had phone conversations, they had conversations about their phones. That's nefarious, right? Why would they even, if they're innocent and they didn't do anything wrong, why would they be having conversations about their phones, right? That's crazy. And the fact that only a few of the jury members cared about that, thought that was anything that mattered to the trial. I'm blown away re-listening to him and seeing how stoic he was and stone cold. He never broke character this whole time. We have about an hour left of his testimony, and we'll see if he has any demeanor that shows any kind of kindness towards Jackson or any kind of human where he's not like a robot, because he's literally been like a robot this whole time we've been watching him tonight. He has never changed that facial expression, just that blanket, that cold, staring facial expression. It's really quite something, isn't it? It really, really is. Julie says, so I can see why that juror, Ronnie, and the stuff that the defense did was distractor. But Jesus, did they not hear what BA was saying? Yeah, I know. It's like, how could they? That's right. I forgot they used that word distractor. How could they not take this into account? And how did they not feel that cold, almost kind of scary, stoic type behavior from him, and how, clipped his answers were? Yes, 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 no. And then so many in the last half an hour, I don't recall, I don't remember. And then trying to kind of mince words a little bit there with Jackson. And it's just unbelievable to me. Red Racer says, I study data for a living on race cars. Oh, well, how interesting. 70% throttle in reverse has an extension, has an intention. Oh yeah, exactly. For sure. wow, this is really interesting. You study data for a living. That's interesting. I live not very far from the Daytona Speedway. We just had the Daytona 500, which was a super exciting ending, crazy amount of crashes. My dad was big into sports my whole life. So I always tell people I was raised on a bleacher, which is absolutely the truth. We went to football, high school basketball every Friday night my whole life. I cannot remember a Friday night I wasn't on a bleacher. And then in the summer, it would be baseball or stock car races, as we called them back then, Indy car races. The Indy and the stock car guys were almost the same. They all drove this, they drove Indy and they drove the NASCAR. I got to meet some of the coolest drivers back in the day because it was just more small towny. Like if we were in Milwaukee and we were at the Milwaukee Mile, we were in the infield and I met AJ Foyt and Al Unser and Mario Andretti, and you could park in the infield and the racers would come and talk to you and you could get their autographs, especially kids. Like I was like 10, 11 at the time. So I have this fondness now because of my dad. I have a fondness for I don't follow every single weekend of it, but I just like watching them race. And the Indy cars always fascinated me a little bit more than the NASCAR. But now the way they do NASCAR to me is just crazy. The way they ride each other's bumpers like that and the drafting, and it's insane. So, wow, that is really interesting, Red Racer. It's so glad to meet you and so happy to know you. You are in Seattle. Wow, that's fantastic. Way across the country. And I'm in Florida. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I go back and forth a lot to see my family and friends. And so SCCA, that is great. I have never been to Washington. It's on my bucket list. I have to get there. I lived in California off and on different times in my life, but I have never made it up to Oregon and Washington, and I'm missing Montana. Those are 3 states on my, I have 7 states left. So it's maybe we'll have to talk about that one of these nights at the end. I always, I want to get a map and put it up in my hallway and pin every state I've been in and show I only have 7 to go. So I hope Rhode Island is one of them. I'm so mad at myself. I've been out east so many times, multiple times, because I have family out there and friends, and I always miss Rhode Island. So now I've got to figure out how I'm going to get Rhode Island out of the way first. And then I've got to get the 6 states out west that I still have to, Alaska. I don't know if I'm going to get there. It'd be nice, but I don't know. I hate cold. So, but it would be beautiful. Has anybody ever been to Alaska? I'm curious. Replay, let me know in the chat if any of you have ever been to Alaska. I've been to Hawaii. I was very lucky to get to go there when I was only 18, but not Alaska. But I have to see, I want to see Washington. It just looks like a beautiful state. Red Racer. What an interesting career. So, okay, let's recap. Did Brian Elbert tell the 100% truth? Absolutely not. I'll put it, I'm not going to put the poll up till next week when we're done with him, but no. Was he evasive? Yeah, quite a bit, right? When he was playing around with Jackson and his words and trying to, nitpick every little answer to every little question. And did he lie? He absolutely lied. There's no doubt in my mind that he lied. Anybody that's watching this that, has any intellect whatsoever, I mean, I think a child could figure this out, that of how much lying goes on. Now, how do you explain John's phone never going into the house? That's a good question. But how do we know John's phone never went into the house? Are you saying because of some of the evidence from the phone that they were claiming that it never made it to the house? Because I think that they've battled that right back and forth, the phone experts, as to if the phone was in that foyer area or not. Because my thought is that we don't necessarily know that if they got in a fight, which is what we're expecting, that is what happened, because how else could he have been injured? That it could have happened in the foyer. It didn't necessarily have to have happened in the basement. It could have happened right away when he got in the house, as soon as they started talking and jawing back and forth. So the phone, that's so close. I mean, you're talking about what, 1 or 2 feet? How many, let's see, what's next here? Oh, roll over 97. How many times did he say, can you rephrase that again? Oh yeah, that was interesting, right? Quite a bit, because, he wanted time to think. So that's a reason why they do that. Others have done that too. I'm pretty sure Jen McCabe did it quite a few times. So good. I'm glad you pointed that out. That was really good. Yeah, that was quite a bit. I'd have to go back and count, but definitely quite a bit. So I'm curious. Yeah, Red Racer, you say the GPS, but so let us know. Are you on the fence, or do you think that Karen Reed hit him with her car? And if you do, can you tell us why you would think that, given that the science and the physics, the PhD guys are telling us that there's just no way? And I'm going to tell you guys, I've shared this on Twitter, but I have not shared this yet with you guys on Friday Night Lights. My dad died of cancer when I was 19, and it was very quick. It happened fast. It was stunning, very tragic for our family. And then my grandfather, his dad, a year and a half later, was crossing a very busy street in Madison called East Washington Avenue. They lived about a block off of East Washington Avenue, actually, a short block even. And he was going to the bakery where my grandma worked. He did this for years and years and years. They moved into this home in like 1952 when my dad was like 12, maybe even 50. And they were still living in it up until their deaths, which were in 80, 83 and 84. So imagine how many times he had walked over to this bakery to see my grandma and get bread and take it back home. And he was struck by a car, and he was crossing. They believe he was crossing on a flashing yellow, and she ran the yellow. So they didn't falter for it, which at the time we were all so much in trauma because my dad had just died and now my grandpa is dead. My grandma didn't want to press charges or look into anything like that. We kind of figured that she was 18 and that she was going to be traumatized for a very long time, having struck a 77-year-old man, and he ended up passing. His injuries were significant. Now, granted, it was a front end. It wasn't what they're claiming, that Karen Reed backed into him. It was a front end collision. But when a body hits a car, if you've never seen it, it's not pretty. Okay. I had calls as a police officer. A friend of mine hit a car on her bicycle and passed away. And my grandfather was hit by a car in a crosswalk and passed away. And the speed limit at the time back then would have been probably 25 miles an hour. I don't recall if they ever told us how fast she was going. I believe she did attempt to brake. So she would have definitely not been going the full speed. She tried to brake. She tried to not hit him. It just doesn't make sense, guys. It doesn't make sense. Science says no, that he was not hit by a car. So I'd like to know that. So what do you got here for me, Red Racer? We still use leaded fuel. Okay. Oh, wait, hang on. I want to see. I'm missing a few things here. How many times? Okay, that was rollover. Okay, I'm catching up. Also, the GPS on the phone is subject to weather and satellite. Yes, right. And just relates to the phone. John could have dropped it outside. Who knows? Yeah, exactly. But I think they're going to probably both sides will hone in on that again. And I'll look into that, guys, for next week, because I've been thinking about that again, about the GPS of the phone. But there's a lot of things with the phone that doesn't make sense. Like the fact that they're trying to say that it was when he was in the car and they went over hills, and then Aiden actually went out and drove that exact area where they would have been, and it's flat as a pancake. So there's so much in this case that doesn't add up or doesn't make sense. And there is only so much we can do with technology and how accurate technology can truly be, like what Julie just said, because of weather and it was snowing. So I'm going to go back, see what I can find about that, because I respect everybody's opinion in here. Everyone's welcome to come to Friday Night Lies. You can be on the fence. You can think that you can believe she hit him with the car. You can believe she didn't hit him with the car. We're happy to have you, and we're all talking it out. We're all being respectful, because at the very end of the day, everybody wants justice for John O'Keefe. He was unalived. He did not unalive himself. He was not ill. He was not sick. He did not, any other way was he unalived other than by someone else doing something they shouldn't have been doing, whether it was accidentally hitting him or getting in a fight with him and hurting him to the point where he either fell and hit his head and died, or they knocked him over the head, busted him over the head with something. We just don't know for sure. It's all theories right now. So I welcome everybody to come to Friday Night Lies and give us your opinion. And it's great to have good debate, right? So Julie says, oh, I'm sorry, Red Racer. Oh, one of his kidney. Oh, Oh, I'm so sorry. My son was hit and killed by, oh no. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's terrible. That's just terrible. I'm so, so sorry. I know this pain, not as a mother, but as a granddaughter, because I was very close to my grandfather and he was a very healthy man. He probably would have lived to be in his 90s. I really do believe he would have. And the other part of that story, which is why I'm familiar with trauma, partially probably why I wanted to live stream and stand for victims of crimes and for people to get justice, is then my grandmother had a massive heart attack just 3 months later. It was too much for her, losing her only son and then her husband. I mean, we loved her and we treated her wonderfully, but we just ultimately, we weren't enough to ease that stress that happened to her, and her heart couldn't take it. So we lost my dad, my grandpa, and my grandma all within a year and a half. We were a small family to begin with because both my parents were only children. My mom's still alive, so she was only child. So there were the 8 of us. It was me, my sister, my mom, my dad, and my 4 grandparents. And we literally did everything together. Like I said, I grew up on a bleacher and everybody came. The grandparents brought snacks. We made confetti. We had a really cool childhood, and then all of a sudden it was abruptly changed forever when we lost all 3 of these people in such an unexpected, tragic way. So I feel that that's why I have this empathy for people that have lost people. I didn't lose anyone, thankfully, to unaliving, to murder. Sorry, YouTube. I got to sneak that word in there every once in a while because it really upsets me that I can't use it. You guys know that. I think unaliving is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. It's the M word is in the dictionary. It's a word. We should be able to use it. But tragic just the same. So, cancer, getting hit by a car, and then a massive heart attack, all when they should have all still been alive and I should have still gotten to spend time with them. So tragedy is tragedy. And so that's why I do this. That's why I live stream. That's why I stand for victims of crime and unsolved M cases. So I am so sorry. So sorry. It is so tragic. So yes, I have seen what a car can do and not do to a body when hit by a car. Yeah, you certainly have. And I'm so sorry. So I hope you'll come back next Friday. We're going to finish up Brian Albert. There's about an hour left of his testimony. So it gets better from what I recall. And did anybody look up who's next? I forgot to do that. And what I have of Brian Albert is it ends. So it doesn't show me, like with earlier, Nicole and Julie were on like the same day. So I don't know yet. And let me look. I got to look. Hang on, stand by. Let me see if I can find who goes after Brian Albert. I'm going to Google it. So stand by a second. Unless anybody beats me to it, I will see if I can find it quick. I mean, part of me thinks it's Caitlin, that they stuck with the family, right? But I just don't remember. Aha, I was right. It is. Brian Albert's daughter, Caitlin Albert, took the stand after her father and brother. Oh, after her father and brother. So does Brian Albert Jr. go next then? Caitlin Albert took the stand after her father and brother. Okay, so Brian Albert Jr. Okay, I think we can definitely do Brian Albert and then Brian Albert Jr. I don't think his testimony was incredibly long. I'll double check that and I'll put it up on the thumbnail. And that'll be our next Friday Night Lies. And that takes us to the end of February, believe it or not, right? I can't believe it. So I am just incredibly sorry. And you said his eyes were just like John's. Yeah, I have read, obviously that can happen. A traumatic brain injury can cause that. But again, Red Racer One, I have to debate you respectfully that the other injuries just make zero sense then. Okay. If you want to say that head injury came from either the car, which it couldn't, because they ended up saying that he hit it with his elbow, that his elbow is what crashed the taillight into a 47 pieces, which I don't buy at all as a cop or as just a human. And then the head injury, how does that happen then? The head injuries from hitting the ground, just the ground only, cause that type of a head injury. The medical people say no, so I like science. I'm a science girl. So I got to stick with the science in this one, but I respect that you have your opinion, and based on your trauma, You are absolutely allowed to have your opinion. But again, the no bruising to John, John's body, nothing below the chest area other than the arm, and the arm, those bizarre marks that, to me, having seen dog bites, having owned dogs since I was 21, I've been bit by a dog that attacked my dog. I'm just there that it couldn't have been Karen Reed and her SUV. That's where I'm at. And I've been there for a long time. I came into it with an open mind. I honestly did. When I first heard about it, I thought that it was what it was. When I first heard about it, I heard very little about it. And I thought that she had drank too much and accidentally hit him when she was dropping him off because it was snowing and she had poor visibility, and he was drunk and she had been drinking. And that's what I thought happened. But then once I found out more about it and started learning more about it, and then the grand jury happened, I completely changed my mind, because there's just too many inconsistencies, too many shenanigans going on. Horrible police investigation. Officers are not trained to conduct an investigation that way, especially leaving the scene like that unsecured. That never happens. Never. It only happens when there's corruption, like with Ellen Greenberg, when they left the scene and they did not secure it, and they didn't come back until after the police gave them permission to clean it. I mean, these are things that trained police officers never do. So when there's this many mistakes by police, it cannot be just bad police work, because that's not how we're trained. Police of any job where you can't be crappy at your job, it's police and fire and EMS, right? You can make mistakes. Mistakes happen, shit happens, but not like that, not that much. That's always been my problem with this case. Let me keep up here. Red Racer, they kept him alive in the hospital. Oh, well, I mean, what a wonderful thing you did, for that you donated, and others have gotten to live. But we are so incredibly sorry for your loss. There can't be anything worse than the loss of a child. And I am just so terrible. How do you know he wasn't hit and crawled to the place where he was found? Well, we don't know, right? We don't know that. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that. But again, it's not just about, did he get hit? It's about explaining why 11 people didn't see him laying in the yard. It's explaining why so many people lied on the stand, obviously lied. And as we go through the rest of the witnesses, I'm going to keep pointing out the lies, and you all can believe me or not believe me when I'm telling you that's a lie, right? I hit him. No, that's a lie. So, that's how it's going to go on through the weeks. I'm going to keep pointing out the lies. And for that many witnesses to lie, and that many activities to happen around this incident, for there not to be some type of corruption involved, what just doesn't make sense. It's not. There was a lot of the anti-Karen readers they're coming at me at Twitter, and I'll have some good arguments with, some not so good. They just don't have a lot, and they have nothing to say about 11 people not seeing a body in the front yard. That, to me, that's impossible. That many people would come and go. And if it only been a couple, sure, then we could say maybe if this had happened or if that had happened, but there's too much. There's just too much for there not to be something. This is not your average hit and run, cut and dry. No, there are cases like that it's obvious, and they don't go to trial because the person takes a plea deal or the person admits it. Yeah, I did it. It was an accident, manslaughter, whatever happens, or what charges they end up getting, right? There's nothing in this case that adds up, and there's just too much. It's just really too much. Julie says, we don't know that. That's not the CW's theory. It's a crap circumstance all around with this. Yeah. And again, we don't have to know everything, but reasonable doubt is reasonable doubt. That's how our court system is set up. If there is even any reasonable doubt, then you cannot convict someone. That is to protect people from going to jail when they don't deserve it. And I would rather see people get off than to have an innocent person spend 20 years in jail for something they didn't do. And it happens far too much. So that my whole bottom line is, we don't have to prove who did it. Karen Reed's attorneys don't have to prove who did it. They just have to show the jury that there's too much reasonable doubt. And sometimes people don't get punished for things they do because if you can't do it clear cut, with no reasonable doubt, then you can't. That's the way our system's set up. And we have to respect that. We have to be okay with that. We have to find a way to make peace with that, because we can't go around convicting people for things they didn't do because you don't like the way the system works, right? It is one hell of a conspiracy theory, but it's not a conspiracy theory because science is involved. So the conspiracy theory is framing someone for doing something they didn't do. Now that's a conspiracy, right? And I don't think they ever intended to involve Karen. This is just my opinion, not just as an ex-cop, but just as a person. I don't believe they ever intended to involve her. I think that they didn't want her there at all. I mean, the fact that Jen McCabe wanted her to ride with her, to me, tells me that Jen was going to make some kind of detour, like they do in the movies, right? When they don't want someone to show up in time for something and they're purposely detour them. I think she was going to do some kind of detour, like, oh, let's stop and grab some claws to bring back to my house. I don't have anything to drink. Or what do you want to drink? I don't know if anything would have been open anywhere or what your laws are for buying alcohol that time of night. I'm just saying as example. I think Jen was going to come up with some errand she had to run, stop at a quick shop or whatever you guys call them. We call them corner stores here in Florida and Madison. We call them, quick shops. So that they could have their talk with John, and they were pissed at him for something that he was involved with, that he knew about, that they didn't want him to either know about or they didn't want him to bring up. They were going to have a chat with him, and they didn't want Karen there for that. And so why else would Jen McCabe say, ride with me? That doesn't make any sense at all, right? So there's just so many things that don't add up and don't make sense. And when that happens, your 1 + 1 = 2 does not occur. So, and then you have a problem, and you can call it a conspiracy if you want, but it's not a conspiracy to defend yourself against being framed, right? If there's a logical explanation for what actually happened, then them getting in a fight because they were pissed at John for something, that's very logical. They were all drinking. They were posturing in the bar. There was a lot going on at the end of that waterfall that we've seen. And I don't think they planned it. I think it was an accident. However he injured his head was an accident. And Chloe was not a friendly dog, and she didn't know John. So if he came in and the shouting started right away and then punches were thrown right away, Chloe's not going to like that. And that would completely explain why his arm was bit. There's no way the taillight did that to his arm. You're never going to convince me of that. They would have to be able to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, which they can't do, because it's not scientifically possible, according to the experts, for his arm to end up with those kind of injuries. So there's all those reasons. And I didn't even list half of how many I could list. So we'll keep talking about it every week. I'm not going to change your mind. You're probably not going to change my mind. And it's all going to, whether it all be proven or not. But the bottom line is there's too much reasonable doubt to convict someone. So Karen needs to go free. There's too much reasonable doubt, whether you like it or not, whether you believe she did it or not. Sometimes you cannot convict. And that is why Suzanne Morphew is still dead and has no justice, because they obviously don't have enough evidence to take what I believe was her domestic abusive husband to court. I don't know that they're going to have enough evidence to take Ellen Greenberg's abusive fiance to court. Sometimes we don't get justice. We just get some kind of resolution. The fact that Ellen Greenberg's parents now were told by that medical examiner that he effed up and that he never should have changed her manner of death from a homicide to an unaliving by herself, that had to give them some peace. I saw a clip today of them being interviewed where her mother just kept repeating, Ellen Ray Greenberg did not commit suicide. Ellen Ray Greenberg did not commit suicide. I mean, they've been fighting for that for all these years, since 2011. They knew deep down in their soul, there's no way their daughter stabbed herself 20 times. So will there be justice to the extent of actually arresting who I believe is the person who unalived her? And was she involved in domestic violence? Absolutely, she was. But we don't know right now. So we may not get any resolution for John in that way. We may not be able to prove who actually unalived him. Maybe Karen did hit him with her car. Maybe the science is wrong and we're all wrong. But guess what? you still can't convict her if you can't convince a jury that if there's any reasonable doubt, they cannot convict. That is their instruction, not according to message. If that was their instruction, this should be over. There should have been no hung jury. The fact that they were so confused about the charges, it's all mind-boggling to me how that all went down. But the bottom line is you cannot convict someone if there's reasonable doubt. And this case is littered with reasonable doubt, and it's littered with police malpractice at the minimum, and lies, lots of lies, for reasons that if Karen hit him with their car, why are all these people lying? Why are they throwing phones away? Why are they butt dialing each other? Why are they looking out the window? Why are 11 people not seeing a body? On and on and on and on. So thank you, everybody. This was a really good discussion tonight in our live conversation box, I like to call it now. And I will be back next Friday. We will finish Brian Albert. We will bridge on into Brian Albert Jr. and see how far we get. If we get to Caitlin, we do. If we don't, we push her to the next week. But thank you for joining us again, Red Racer. I'm so sorry for your loss. And thank you for the debate. Thank you for getting us all to think along a different line. But I pretty much have a comeback after watching this case for as long as I have for anything that comes my way, because for me, it's just logic and science and too many mistakes by the police that I believe were purposeful, and too many lies by the witnesses. Nothing adds up in this case whatsoever. So again, thanks to all of my subscribers for being part of Social Change Warriors, for standing for the victims that we stand for on Wednesdays and Thursday nights in our Women Empowerment Night on Wednesdays, and our Calling Out Corruption on Thursdays. I really, truly appreciate all of you. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you get to relax, do something fun that you enjoy, take a break from true crime. Do not do true crime 7 days a week. It's hard, especially for me right now, because I have the 2 cases here in Florida that I'm actually working with the families. It is hard because I'm constantly thinking about what if, can I solve this? Can I help the police? So I have to take a break, though. I'm going to take the weekend off, and I suggest you all do the same if you can break from it, because it's a lot and you're going to get compassion fatigue. It's going to happen. And I don't want to see that happen for you. So don't forget to take care of yourself, do things for yourself. You can still stand for everybody that you want to stand for and for justice, but you still have to stand for yourself. So have a great night. I appreciate all of you. And we'll be back next week with Kara on Wednesday with more audio of what we are finding out are absolutely ridiculous, the way that they handled the interviews of the witnesses for Jason's homicide, which is not solved. It's a closed case, according to them. No one did anything wrong, according to them, but Jason's still dead, and he did not unalive himself. So somebody absolutely did something wrong, and it wasn't his fault. He didn't deserve to be held down on the ground for 9 minutes. It was a verbal altercation until the man he was arguing with brought a hatchet into the bar, and they continued to call Jason the aggressor. This is the most convoluted, bizarre, one of the most bizarre cases I've ever seen. And I'm fortunate enough, though, to get to have become friends with Kara, and I think her sister's in town now. I might get to meet her sister. I've met her mother via email, and I've met his mother via the live chat and the phone conversations, email conversations. So we will continue to stand for Jason Veach and hope we can get some justice for him for this just crazy verbal bar fight that turned deadly. And so we'll be doing more interviews we'll be seeing Kara again next week, and we may have Madison Audit back. He's an amazing podcaster, live streamer, former police officer here in Daytona Beach area, South Daytona Beach. And he brought a lot of interesting notes for us last night to think about. So that'll be Wednesday. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to have on for next Thursday yet, but I will let you know as soon as possible and post it on my socials, and you can look in the lineup on our channel. So thanks again to everybody. See you next week. Stay safe. And remember, as my mother always said, it's just us.
They try to silence the truth we shout, but but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge of name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The heroes undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall for justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring. They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge of name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, Justice seekers will fight the fight for heroes, undo the harm, calling out corruption. We'll stand tall for justice and truth. We'll risk it all. My